Hello everyone. I know many of you are watching this video to fall asleep. Before you drift off, let me know in the comments what time you're watching and where you're from. Now, let's begin and relax together. You know how sometimes we think we want excitement and adventure, but really what we crave is stability and routine? That's kind of what boring paradoxes are all about. They're situations where we find ourselves caught between two opposing ideas, both of which seem appealing, yet neither quite delivers what we're looking for. It's like being stuck between a rock and a hard place. But instead of rocks and hard places, it's more like being torn between comfort and growth, or familiarity and exploration. Let me give you an example. Imagine you've always dreamed of traveling the world, but now that you have the chance, you find yourself feeling anxious about leaving behind everything familiar. Or picture this. You've been wanting to start a new business, but every time you take a step towards it, you feel overwhelmed by all the unknowns. These are boring paradoxes because they're situations where our desires seem to contradict each other, leaving us feeling stuck. The thing is, these paradoxes aren't necessarily bad. They can actually be opportunities for growth and self-discovery. It's just that they require us to think differently about what we truly want and why. So maybe instead of trying to force a decision, we could take a moment to reflect on what's really important to us. What are our non-negotiables? What would truly make us happy in the long run? Remember, life is full of these kinds of paradoxes. The key is to approach them with curiosity rather than frustration. By doing so, we can turn what feels like a problem into an interesting puzzle to solve. And who knows, you might just find that the solution leads you down a path you never expected, but one that ultimately brings you exactly where you need to be. You see, paradoxes have been fascinating people for centuries, don't you think? They're like riddles wrapped in enigmas, hiding truths we can't quite grasp. The boring paradox, for instance, seems counterintuitive at first glance. It suggests that when we make things more efficient, we often end up with less free time overall. Imagine a factory worker who becomes so skilled at their job that they complete tasks in half the time. At first, this might seem wonderful, more productivity. But here's the thing. If everyone else also becomes twice as efficient, there's suddenly half as much work to go around. It's like trying to fill a bucket with water faster, only to find out the bucket itself has shrunk. This paradox reminds us that sometimes our pursuit of efficiency can lead to unexpected consequences. It's a reminder to appreciate the balance between progress and simplicity in our lives. What do you think? Does this sound like something we've all experienced at some point? You know how sometimes life feels like Groundhog Day? That's kind of what boring paradoxes are like. They seem familiar yet frustratingly out of reach. Take the barber paradox, for instance. Imagine a barber who shaves all the men in town who don't shave themselves. Does he shave himself? If he doesn't, he must be one of the men who don't shave themselves, so he should. But if he does, then he's shaving a man who does shave himself, which goes against his rule. It's mind-bending, isn't it? These paradoxes often feel like riddles we can't quite crack. They challenge our assumptions about logic and reality in ways that make us scratch our heads. The liar paradox is another good example. It's like trying to define a word that says only things that aren't true. It creates this infinite loop of contradictions that leaves us wondering how we ever thought we understood things so clearly. But here's the thing. While these paradoxes might seem confusing or even pointless, they actually help us think more deeply about how we reason and communicate. They force us to question our assumptions and consider multiple perspectives. So maybe instead of getting frustrated, we could embrace these paradoxes as invitations to explore the complexities of life and language. After all, isn't that what makes life interesting? The puzzles we haven't solved yet? You know how sometimes life feels like Groundhog Day? Like we're stuck in this never-ending loop, doing the same things over and over again. That's kind of what boring paradoxes feel like. They're mind-bending puzzles that seem to lead nowhere. But here's the thing. Even though they might seem pointless, they can actually be pretty profound. Think of them like riddles that challenge our understanding of time and space. They make us question everything we thought we knew about reality. It's a bit like trying to wrap your head around quantum physics. It sounds crazy, but it's actually pretty fascinating once you get into it. Take the grandfather paradox, for instance. If you went back in time and killed your own grandfather before he had kids, would you still exist? It sounds silly, but it really makes you think about cause and effect. And that's what paradoxes do. They nudge us out of our comfort zones and force us to see things from different angles Yes, oh, while boring paradoxes might seem dull at first glance, they're actually gateways to deeper thinking and new perspectives. They're like mental exercises that keep our minds sharp and curious. And who knows, you might just find yourself pondering them long after you've finished reading about them. You know how sometimes life feels like a never-ending cycle? Like we're stuck in this repetitive loop, doing the same things over and over again. That's kind of what the boring paradox is all about. It suggests that even though our lives might seem dull or uneventful from the outside, every experience, no matter how mundane, contributes to who we become. Think of it like a patchwork quilt. Each boring day adds another piece to the fabric of our lives. And just as a beautiful tapestry emerges from countless small stitches, so do we grow and change through our everyday experiences. The paradox isn't about dismissing excitement or adventure. It's about finding meaning in the ordinary moments, too. After all, isn't it the accumulation of all these little moments that makes life rich and full? You know how sometimes life feels like Groundhog Day? Like we're stuck in this never-ending loop, doing the same things over and over? That's kind of what boring paradoxes feel like too. They're these mind-bending puzzles that seem simple at first, but end up leading us down rabbit holes of confusion. Take Zeno's paradox, for example. It says that because we have to cover half the distance before we can reach our goal, and then half of that, and so on ad infinitum, we'll never actually get there. It's like trying to take a step forward, but first you have to take half a step, then a quarter, and so on forever. It makes you wonder about the nature of motion and change. But here's the thing. Even though these paradoxes can make our heads spin, they often lead us to deeper truths about how the world really works. So maybe instead of getting frustrated, we could embrace them as invitations to explore the weird and wonderful corners of logic and reality. After all, isn't life itself kind of a paradox? You know how sometimes life feels like Groundhog Day? Like we're stuck in this never-ending loop, reliving the same moments over and over? That's kind of what physicists mean when they talk about closed time-like curves. It's like time itself becomes circular, and we end up back where we started. But here's the thing. Even though it sounds mind-bending, this idea actually helps us understand some pretty weird phenomena in physics. Take quantum entanglement, for instance. When two particles become entangled, measuring one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. It's as if they're connected by an invisible thread. Some scientists think this could be evidence of hidden variables, things we can't directly observe but influence our reality. It's a bit like trying to grasp a handful of sand. The harder we squeeze, the more it slips through our fingers. The paradoxes we encounter in science often lead us down rabbit holes of thought, challenging our understanding of space, time, and causality. They remind us that there's still so much we don't know, and that's what makes exploring them so fascinating. You know how sometimes we think we understand things, but really we don't? That's kind of what happens with boring paradoxes. They're like puzzles wrapped in riddles, hidden inside a layer cake of confusion. You might look at them and think, oh, I get it, but really you're just scratching the surface. It's like trying to grasp a handful of sand. The harder you squeeze, the more it slips away. Take the barber paradox, for instance. It goes like this. There's a barber in a town who shaves all the men in town who don't shave themselves. But does he shave himself? If he doesn't, then he must be one of the men who don't shave themselves, so he should shave himself. But if he does shave himself, then he's shaving a man who does shave himself, so he shouldn't shave himself. See what I mean? It's like chasing your tail. You're always coming back to where you started. And that's the beauty of boring paradoxes. They keep us guessing, keep us thinking, even when we think we've got them figured out. They remind us that sometimes the most interesting things are the ones we least expect to find fascinating. You know how sometimes life feels like Groundhog Day? Like we're stuck in this never-ending loop of routine and monotony? Well, humor can be our escape hatch from all that tedium. It's like having a secret passageway hidden behind a bookshelf, waiting to whisk us away to a world of absurdity and laughter. When we find ourselves caught in one of those boring paradoxes, the ones where logic goes out the window and common sense flies out the door, humor can be our trusty compass, guiding us through the maze of confusion. Take the barber paradox, for instance. Imagine walking into a barber shop where the sign reads, "This barber shaves all the men in town who don't shave themselves." Now, does he shave himself? If he doesn't, then he must be one of the men he shaves, so he should shave himself. But if he does shave himself, then he's not one of the men he shaves, so he shouldn't shave himself. See what I mean? It's enough to drive you crazy. But here's the thing. When we approach such paradoxes with a dash of humor, we might just find ourselves smiling at the absurdity rather than getting lost in the logical labyrinth. After all, isn't life too short to take ourselves too seriously? So go ahead, chuckle at the contradictions, and remember, sometimes the best way to solve a paradox is to laugh at it first. You know how sometimes we get caught up in our own thoughts and lose sight of what truly matters? That's kind of like what happens when we get stuck on boring paradoxes. It's like being trapped in a maze with no clear exit sign. We keep circling around, trying to make sense of things that don't quite add up. But here's the thing. Those paradoxes aren't necessarily bad news. They can actually be a sign that we're pushing against the boundaries of what we thought we knew. It's like discovering a hidden door in our minds that we never knew existed. The question is, how do we use this newfound awareness? Do we let it paralyze us, or do we embrace it as an opportunity to grow? For instance, take Zeno's paradox about motion. On one hand, it can make you feel like you're never really moving forward. But on the other hand, it might inspire you to appreciate the tiny steps you take each day. So maybe the real paradox isn't about motion at all, but about how we choose to see our journey. What do you think? How have you encountered paradoxes in your own life? And how did you navigate them? You know how sometimes we get caught up in thinking about big questions? Like, what's the meaning of life or why we're here? Well, I've been pondering this idea called the boring paradox. It suggests that the more we learn about the world, the less interesting it becomes. At first glance, that sounds pretty dull. But think about it like this. Imagine you're a kid exploring a forest for the first time. Every tree, every bird call, every rustle in the leaves is fascinating. Now, picture yourself as a forester who knows every inch of that forest. The trees still stand tall, but they don't seem quite so magical anymore. This paradox makes me wonder, do we lose our sense of wonder as we gain knowledge? Is there a point where learning stops being exciting and starts feeling like work? I'm not sure I have all the answers, but it's an interesting thought to consider. Maybe the key is finding ways to keep discovering even when we think we know everything. After all, isn't that what curiosity is all about? What do you think? Do you find yourself getting excited about new discoveries, or does learning start to feel routine after a while? You know how sometimes life feels like Groundhog Day? Like we're stuck in this never-ending loop, reliving the same moments over and over? That's kind of what I think of when people talk about boring paradoxes. They're like riddles that make sense, but don't make sense at the same time. For instance, take the barber paradox. It goes like this. Imagine there's a barber in a town who shaves all the men in the town who don't shave themselves. Does he shave himself? If he doesn't, then he must be one of the men who don't shave themselves, so he should shave himself. But if he does shave himself, then he's shaving a man who does shave himself, which goes against his original rule. See what I mean? It's mind-bending stuff. And yet, paradoxes like these actually help us think more deeply about logic and reasoning. They challenge our assumptions and push us to consider things from different angles. So while they might seem boring at first glance, paradoxes like these can actually be pretty fascinating once you dig deeper. What do you think? Have you ever come across any paradoxes that really stuck with you? You know how sometimes life feels like Groundhog Day? Like we're stuck in this never-ending loop of routine and monotony? That's kind of what boring paradoxes feel like. They're these mind-bending puzzles that seem so obvious yet impossible to wrap our heads around. Take Zeno's paradox, for instance. It's like trying to get from one end of a room to the other, but every time you take a step, you've only moved halfway. It's frustrating because we know we should be able to reach the other side, but our logic keeps getting us stuck. But here's the thing. Maybe these paradoxes aren't meant to be solved. Maybe they're just there to make us think differently about how we see the world. After all, isn't that what life is all about, finding new ways to look at things and grow from them? So next time you find yourself stuck in a boring paradox, try not to get frustrated. Instead, imagine you're standing at the edge of a beautiful lake on a still morning. The water is glassy smooth, reflecting the trees perfectly. As you gaze out across it, you start to notice ripples forming, each one unique and fleeting. That's kind of what these paradoxes do. They create little ripples in our minds, making us see the world in new ways. And who knows, sometimes the most profound insights come from the places we least expect. You know how sometimes we find ourselves stuck in a rut, going through the motions, but feeling empty inside? It's kind of like being lost in a familiar place. Everything looks right, but you're not quite where you want to be. The media can play a big role in shaping how we perceive these boring paradoxes of life. Think about it like this. Imagine you're watching a TV show where every day is exactly the same for the characters. At first, it might seem repetitive and dull, but if that's all you ever see, it starts to feel normal. The media can do something similar with our lives. By constantly showing us the same types of stories or experiences, it can make us feel like our own boring routines are actually exciting. But here's the thing. Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean it has to be your reality. You have the power to create your own excitement, even in the most mundane tasks. For example, try approaching a routine chore as if it were an adventure. What new sights or sensations could you discover? By shifting your perspective, you can turn those boring paradoxes into opportunities for growth and exploration. You know how sometimes we think certain topics might be too dull or straightforward? Well, paradoxes often turn out to be quite fascinating once we dig deeper. The boring paradoxes, in particular, offer a unique perspective on decision making and risk assessment. Imagine you're at a crossroads, unsure which path to take. The boring paradox suggests that sometimes the safest option isn't always the best one. It's like choosing between two seemingly identical doors. You might be more likely to find what you're looking for by picking the less popular door. This paradox challenges our intuition and encourages us to think creatively about how we approach uncertainty. It's not just about being boring. It's about embracing the unexpected and learning to appreciate the value in the unconventional choices we make. So next time you're faced with a decision, remember that the boring option might just lead you to something extraordinary. You know how sometimes we get caught up in our own thinking and forget to step back? That's kind of what boring paradoxes do. They're like puzzles that seem interesting at first, but end up being more confusing than enlightening. Take the barber paradox, for instance. It's this classic brain teaser about a barber who shaves all the men in town who don't shave themselves. But what if the barber doesn't shave himself? Does he count as one of the men who don't shave themselves? See, it's like trying to catch your own tail, it leads nowhere fast. Now, compare that to other paradoxes like the grandfather paradox. That one's more like a time-traveling adventure story. Imagine going back in time and preventing your grandfather from having children. But wait, if you never existed, who went back in time? It's mind-bending stuff. The grandfather paradox feels more real-world relevant because it plays with our understanding of cause and effect. It makes us wonder about the fabric of time itself. Boring paradoxes might be fun to think about, but they often feel disconnected from our everyday lives. They're more like abstract math problems rather than thought experiments that challenge our core beliefs. So while both types of paradoxes can make us scratch our heads, only some of them leave us feeling like we've learned something new about ourselves and the world around us. You know how sometimes we make decisions without even realizing we're doing it? It's like our minds are little autopilots, steering us through life based on past experiences and habits. But what if I told you that these automatic choices might be leading you down paths you never intended to take? It's kind of like driving on autopilot and suddenly finding yourself lost in unfamiliar territory. Imagine your brain as a garden. Some decisions are like planting seeds, they grow and flourish over time. Others are more like weeds, they pop up unexpectedly and can choke out the good stuff. The key is learning to tend to this garden, to notice when certain patterns or thoughts keep showing up. Are they nourishing or suffocating? For instance, have you ever found yourself reaching for junk food every time you're stressed? That could be a pattern worth examining. Maybe instead of fighting it, you could try to understand why you turn to those foods. Is it comfort, convenience, or something else? Once you grasp the root cause, you might find healthier alternatives waiting to be planted. Remember, decision-making isn't always about making perfect choices. It's about becoming aware of your thought patterns and being willing to adjust course when needed. With practice, you can start steering your own ship instead of just going along for the ride. So next time you find yourself making a choice without thinking, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is this really where I want to be? The answer might surprise you. You know how sometimes we find ourselves stuck in a rut, going through the motions, but feeling completely disconnected from what we're doing? That's kind of like what happens when we encounter boring paradoxes. They're these mind-bending puzzles that seem to lead us in circles, leaving us wondering if there's any real resolution. It's a bit like trying to grasp a handful of sand. The harder we squeeze, the more it slips away. The paradoxes challenge our assumptions and force us to question everything we thought we knew. But instead of sparking curiosity, they often leave us feeling frustrated and, well, bored. Take the barber paradox as an example. It goes like this. Imagine a barber in a town who shaves all the men in the town who don't shave themselves. Does he shave himself? If he doesn't shave himself, then he must be one of the men who don't shave themselves, so he should shave himself. But if he does shave himself, then he's shaving a man who does shave himself, which goes against his original rule. It's a bit mind-bending, isn't it? The paradox highlights how our language and logic can sometimes lead us astray. It makes us realize that even seemingly simple concepts can have complex implications when we dig deeper. So while boring paradoxes might leave us feeling stuck or confused, they're actually nudging us towards a deeper understanding of how our minds work and how we think about the world. They challenge us to look at things from different angles and to question what seems obvious. In a way, they're like puzzles that help us grow smarter by forcing us to confront our own limitations. You know how sometimes life feels repetitive and mundane, like we're stuck in this never-ending loop of daily routines and responsibilities? Well, paradoxically, embracing that monotony might be exactly what we need. Think of boring paradoxes as a form of mental yoga. They challenge our minds to find meaning in the ordinary, to appreciate the beauty in the everyday. It's like looking at a familiar landscape through fresh eyes, noticing details we've overlooked before. By accepting the dullness, we open ourselves to new perspectives and insights. Consider this. What if the most profound truths lie hidden within our routine tasks? Perhaps the key to inner peace isn't in escaping our duties, but in finding joy in the journey itself. So next time you feel yourself getting caught up in the cycle of boredom, try to lean into it gently. Ask yourself, what wisdom can I uncover in this seemingly ordinary moment? And watch how your entire outlook might shift. You know how sometimes life feels like a puzzle we're trying to piece together? Well, boring paradoxes are kind of like those missing pieces that don't quite fit anywhere. They're philosophical puzzles that seem obvious, but actually lead to confusing conclusions. Let me give you an example. The Saharites paradox, also called the paradox of the heap. Imagine you have a pile of sand and gradually remove grains one by one. At what point does it stop being a heap anymore? It seems easy to decide, but when you think about it deeply, there's no clear answer. This paradox makes us question our everyday assumptions about categories and boundaries. It's a bit unsettling because it challenges how we normally think about things, but it can also be liberating. By exploring these paradoxes, we might gain new perspectives on how we categorize and understand the world around us. What do you think? Have you ever encountered any mind-bending paradoxes in your own thinking? You know how sometimes we feel like we're getting nowhere fast? That's kind of what the boring paradox is all about. It suggests that as technology advances, our lives might become more efficient, but also potentially less fulfilling. Imagine you're on a train that's always arriving right on schedule. You'll never be late, but you might never arrive anywhere exciting either. This paradox makes us think about what truly matters in life. Is it about getting from point A to B quickly, or is it about enjoying the journey? Maybe technology isn't the problem. Maybe we just need to learn how to appreciate the little things along the way. For instance, think about how social media used to be exciting. Now it feels like everyone's just going through the motions. It's not necessarily that technology has failed us, but perhaps we've forgotten how to truly connect with others and find meaning in our experiences. The boring paradox encourages us to slow down and reflect on what we really want out of life. It's not about rejecting progress, but about finding balance and depth in our increasingly fast-paced world. What do you think? Do you feel like technology is making your life more interesting or less so? You know how sometimes life feels like a stormy sea? Well, our mental health is kind of like that ocean. It ebbs and flows, sometimes calm and peaceful, other times rough and turbulent. Just as waves crash against the shore, our thoughts and emotions can batter us relentlessly. But here's the thing. We have the power to shape this ocean. We can learn to surf those waves, to ride them out when they get too intense. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's normal. In fact, it's often a sign that we need to take a step back, breathe deeply, and remember who we are beyond all this noise. You might be wondering, what does that mean exactly? Well, imagine you're standing on the beach, feeling the sand between your toes. That's kind of what it's like to connect with your true self. It's grounding, you see. And just as the tide always comes back, so do we. We heal, we grow, and we emerge stronger than before. So next time you find yourself lost in the depths of your mind, try to picture yourself standing tall on that beach, feeling the sun on your skin and the breeze in your hair. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. We're all floating on this same ocean together, and sometimes, all we need is a friendly hand to help us stay afloat. You know how sometimes life feels like Groundhog Day? That's kind of what boring paradoxes do in art and literature. They take familiar situations and turn them on their head, making us see things we've never noticed before. It's like looking at a painting through a funhouse mirror. Everything looks slightly off, but somehow more interesting. Take Kafka's The Metamorphosis, for instance. On the surface, it's this absurd story about a guy who turns into a bug. But really, it's exploring what happens when our everyday routines become suffocating. It's like being trapped in a never-ending elevator. You know exactly where you are, but you can't escape. Boring paradoxes challenge us to think differently about the world around us. They make us question our assumptions and find meaning in unexpected places. It's a bit like solving a puzzle blindfolded. You have to trust your other senses to guide you. And when you finally piece it all together, it's incredibly satisfying to the next time you're stuck in traffic or waiting in line, try to find the paradoxical beauty in it. Maybe the slow pace is giving you space to breathe. Or perhaps the delay is allowing you to notice details you usually overlook. Who knows? You might just discover a hidden treasure in the mundane. You know how sometimes life feels repetitive and mundane? Well, there's this interesting concept called the boring paradox. It suggests that even though we often find ourselves stuck in routines, our experiences accumulate over time, making us wiser and more interesting people. Think of it like a garden. At first glance, it might seem dull and unchanging, but beneath the surface, roots are growing deeper and flowers are blooming in unexpected ways. Consider historical figures like Albert Einstein or Marie Curie. On the surface, their lives seemed ordinary: waking up, eating breakfast, going to work. But within those daily routines, they were unraveling the mysteries of the universe. Their experiences, though seemingly boring at times, led them to make groundbreaking discoveries that changed humanity's understanding of reality. It's kind of like how a river appears calm on its surface, but beneath it, powerful currents are flowing. Our lives might look boring on the outside, but inside us, we're constantly evolving and growing. So, the next time you feel like your life is dull, remember that even the most ordinary seeming experiences can lead to extraordinary outcomes. You know how sometimes we learn new things and our minds feel stretched? That's kind of what happens when we develop cognitively. It's like growing new branches on a tree, each one reaching out to explore a different part of life. As we learn and grow, our brains create new connections between ideas, making us better at solving problems and understanding the world around us. It's a gradual process, like watching a garden bloom over time. Some people might pick up new skills quickly, while others take more time. The key is to be patient with yourself and enjoy the journey. Remember, cognitive development isn't just about academics. It's also about learning to navigate emotions, make good decisions, and understand others. So, let's embrace this growth mindset and celebrate every small victory along the way. You know how sometimes life feels like a puzzle, and we're all trying to find our place? Well, let's talk about how technology affects our work and daily lives. It's kind of like having a super smart assistant who can help us solve that puzzle faster. But here's the thing. While technology can be incredibly helpful, we have to use it wisely. Imagine you're trying to build a beautiful sandcastle on the beach. You could use a machine to do it quickly, but would it feel as satisfying? Or picture yourself cooking a meal. A robot chef might prepare it faster, but wouldn't you miss out on the joy of creating something with your own hands? Technology can make our work more efficient, like having extra pairs of hands. But sometimes, we forget to appreciate the simple things about our jobs. It's like losing sight of why we started building that sandcastle in the first place. For example, think about email. It's great for staying connected, but have you ever felt overwhelmed by too many messages? That's when we need to remember to breathe, take a step back, and ask ourselves, what's truly important here? The key is finding that balance. We want to use technology to enhance our lives, not control them. It's like learning to surf. We ride the waves of change, but we never lose touch with the ocean beneath us. You know how sometimes we get lost in our own little worlds? Like when you're so absorbed in a book or a video game that everything else fades away. That's kind of what's happening with technology and social interactions these days. We're all living in our own virtual realities, connecting with people who aren't really there. It's like we're all wearing these fancy VR headsets, but instead of seeing fantastical worlds, we're just seeing each other through screens. Now, don't get me wrong, technology isn't all bad. It's opened up so many doors for communication and connection. But sometimes I wonder if we're losing something precious along the way. Like, remember when you could walk down the street and actually see your neighbors? Or when you could have a real, face-to-face conversation without worrying about what to say next? Those moments were special, weren't they? It's funny we're so connected now, but sometimes I feel like we're further apart than ever. Like, imagine you're sitting on a beach with your friends, watching the sunset together. That's what social interactions used to feel like. Now it feels more like we're all just sitting alone on different beaches, staring at our phones, wondering where everyone else went. That I'm not saying we should all go back to the Stone Age or anything, but maybe we could find a balance. You know, like taking breaks from our screens every now and then to actually look up at each other, to really see people, not just their avatars or profiles. What do you think? Am I just being old-fashioned, or do you feel like there's something missing too? You know how sometimes life feels like a big puzzle, and we're all trying to find our place? Well, technology has changed the game, hasn't it? It's like we've got this amazing tool that can connect us to anyone, anywhere in the world. But here's the thing. Sometimes too much connection can feel like trying to hold water in your hands. It slips right through our fingers, leaving us feeling empty and disconnected. That I've noticed that people often talk about how technology has made relationships easier to maintain. But what they don't always mention is how it can also make them feel more superficial. It's like we're sending each other postcards instead of sharing real moments together. Don't get me wrong, I love a good text or video call as much as the next person, but there's something special about being in someone's presence, feeling their breath on your skin, and sharing a laugh that echoes through the air. That I remember this one friend who used to live far away. We'd talk every day, but it wasn't until she visited that we really connected on a deeper level. It was like our friendship had been a sketch, and suddenly we were coloring it in with vibrant colors. Does that make sense? Maybe technology can help us stay in touch, but sometimes it's the quiet moments, the silences between words, that truly bring people closer together. What do you think? Have you ever felt like you're missing out on real connections because of all these digital interactions? You know how sometimes life feels like a puzzle, and we're trying to find all the right pieces? Well, when it comes to academics, that puzzle can be especially tricky. But here's the thing. Every subject, every assignment, every test, it's all part of that bigger picture. It's like building a house, brick by brick. Each piece might seem small on its own, but together they create something strong and beautiful. Now, I'm not saying it's always easy. There will be times when you feel like you're drowning in homework, or when a particular concept just won't click. But remember, everyone goes through this. Even the smartest people in the room had moments where they felt lost. The key is to keep moving forward, even when it's hard. And don't be afraid to ask for help, whether it's from a teacher, a classmate, or online resources. After all, that's what they're there for. Here's a little secret. Grades aren't everything. What matters more is what you learn along the way. Think of it like collecting seashells on a beach walk. At first glance, they might just look like pretty rocks, but each one tells a story of where it came from and what it went through. Similarly, every challenge you overcome, every difficult concept you grasp, adds depth to your mind and character. So, take a deep breath, put down that stress ball, if you have one handy, and remember why you started learning in the first place. It's because you're curious, because you want to grow, because you want to understand this amazing world we live in. Keep pushing forward, my friend, and trust that with time and effort, you'll build a foundation that will serve you well for years to come. You know how sometimes life feels like a puzzle, and we're all trying to find our place in it? Well, when it comes to professional success, it's kind of like being the architect of your own career. You get to design the blueprint, choose the materials, and decide how high you want to build. But here's the thing. It's not always easy, and there will be times when you feel like you're stuck in the mud. That's why it's so important to remember that success isn't just about reaching the top floor. It's about enjoying the journey too. It's about finding moments of joy along the way, like spotting a beautiful view from a window on your climb up. And sometimes, those moments come when you least expect them, like stumbling upon a hidden talent or making a connection that opens doors you never knew existed. Remember, success isn't just about achieving goals, it's also about growing as a person. It's about learning to navigate through challenges, to adapt to changes, and to find your own unique voice in the world. So, take a deep breath, be patient with yourself, and trust that you're exactly where you need to be right now. Your path to professional success is unique, and it's unfolding in its own sweet time. You know how sometimes we get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life? Well, let's take a step back and think about how all this technology is changing our world, especially when it comes to entertainment. It's kind of like watching a beautiful sunset. From far away, it looks perfect, but up close, you notice all the tiny details that make it truly special. Think about movies and TV shows. They used to be our main escape from reality, right? But now, with streaming services, we have endless options at our fingertips. It's like having a whole library of books at home. Exciting, but also overwhelming. And don't even get me started on social media influencers. They're like modern-day court jesters, entertaining us with their antics while also selling us stuff. But here's the thing. Despite all these changes, people still crave good stories and meaningful experiences. It's just that now we have more ways to find them than ever before. So, in a way, technology has opened up a whole new world of possibilities for creators and consumers alike. It's like discovering a hidden garden in your backyard. You never knew it was there until you stumbled upon it. What do you think about all this? Do you feel like technology has enriched your entertainment experiences, or do you miss the simplicity of old-school media? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. You know how sometimes we talk about big ideas like politics and governance? It's kind of like trying to navigate through a dense forest, isn't it? Every step forward reveals new paths, new challenges, and new opportunities. As we journey through this landscape, we start to notice patterns. Certain trees grow stronger under specific conditions, while others struggle in the same soil. Similarly, political systems thrive when nurtured with transparency, accountability, and inclusivity. But when these elements wither away, the entire ecosystem suffers. Imagine governance as a garden. If we tend to it carefully, pruning unnecessary branches and watering the roots, it flourishes. But if we neglect it, weeds of corruption and inequality might choke out the beauty and diversity we once cherished. The question is, how do we ensure our garden remains healthy and vibrant? One way could be to encourage participation from all members of society, just as every flower needs sunlight and water to bloom. By doing so, we create a more resilient and representative system, much like a lush meadow after spring rains. You know how sometimes life feels like a big puzzle, and we're all trying to find our place in it? Well, religion and spirituality are kind of like different pieces of that puzzle. They help us make sense of things, give us direction, and connect us to something bigger than ourselves. It's like having a map to guide us through the journey of life. But here's the thing. What works for one person might not work for another. Some people find comfort in organized religions with set beliefs and practices, while others prefer a more personal, spiritual approach. It's like choosing between a guided hike and exploring on your own. Both have their beauty. And just as a river flows differently depending on its surroundings, our paths to understanding and connection can vary greatly. The key is finding what resonates with you personally, whether that's through prayer, meditation, community, or simply taking time to appreciate nature's beauty. Remember, there's no right or wrong. It's about finding what nourishes your soul and brings you peace. You know how sometimes we get caught up in our daily routines and forget about the world around us? It's like living in a bubble, isn't it? But have you ever stopped to think about the impact we have on the planet? It's quite remarkable when you consider it. Imagine Earth as a delicate flower. We're all watering it, but sometimes we might be using too much water or giving it the wrong kind of nutrients. Our actions, big and small, contribute to its health. Take plastic bags, for instance. They might seem harmless, but they can take hundreds of years to decompose. It's like wrapping our flower in plastic wrap. It might keep it looking nice for now, but eventually, it'll suffocate. Now, think about renewable energy. It's like giving our planet a breath of fresh air. Solar panels and wind turbines are like nature's own lungs, taking in carbon dioxide and exhaling clean oxygen. They're not perfect, but they're a step in the right direction. The good news is that we can all make a difference. Every small change adds up, just like how each drop of water contributes to a river. We can choose to live more sustainably, reduce our waste, and support companies that care about the environment. It's not always easy, but every effort counts. So, what can you do today to help our delicate flower thrive? Maybe start by reducing your plastic usage or learning more about renewable energy sources. Remember, we're all in this together: humans, animals, plants, and the earth itself. We're all connected, like threads in a beautiful tapestry. Let's weave a story of sustainability and harmony with nature. You know how sometimes we talk about technology like it's this big, scary monster? But really, it's more like a garden. It needs care and attention to grow. When we adopt new tech, it's kind of like planting a seed. At first, it might seem small and insignificant, but with time and nurturing, it can bloom into something beautiful and powerful. Think about it like this. When smartphones first came out, people were hesitant. They worried about distractions and privacy concerns. But now, we can't imagine life without them. It's like how our grandparents might have felt about cars when they first appeared, strange at first, but soon indispensable. The key is finding that balance. We want technology to enhance our lives, not control them. It's like having a smart thermostat. It learns your habits and adjusts accordingly. But if it starts making decisions for you, that's when things get out of hand. So, what do you think about this idea of tech adoption? Do you feel like we're moving too fast or just right? And have you ever had one of those moments where you realized you couldn't imagine life without something new? You know how sometimes you find yourself scrolling through social media, comparing your life to others? It's like watching a parade from the sidelines, isn't it? Everyone looks so perfect and happy, but we rarely see the behind-the-scenes chaos. This constant exposure to curated highlight reels can be misleading. It's like trying to learn about cooking by only watching the finished dishes. You'd never know what went wrong along the way. This digital landscape we live in has changed how we behave as consumers. We're no longer just buying products. We're curating our identities online. Every purchase feels like a statement, every choice a reflection of who we want to be. It's a bit overwhelming, isn't it? But here's the thing. We have the power to shape this narrative. We can choose to focus on real connections, genuine experiences, and meaningful purchases that bring us joy rather than just likes and shares. Remember, true happiness often lies in the imperfections and authenticity of real life, not in the polished images we see online. So, next time you're tempted to buy something just because it'll make a good Instagram post, take a step back and ask yourself, is this really what I need? Or am I just chasing validation? Your wallet and your mental health will thank you. You know how sometimes life feels like a big puzzle? Well, marketing strategies are kind of like putting together that puzzle. They help businesses find their place in the world and connect with people who need what they offer. It's all about understanding your audience and speaking their language. Imagine you're planning a picnic. You want to bring food everyone will enjoy, right? That's basically what good marketing does. It brings the right food to the picnic blanket. But here's the thing. What works today might not work tomorrow. The world is always changing, like the weather. So, businesses need to be flexible and adapt their strategies. It's a bit like adjusting your umbrella when it starts raining harder. You've got to stay nimble and keep your eyes on the horizon. And you know what? Sometimes the best marketing strategies are the ones that feel natural, like a warm breeze on a summer day. They're not forced or artificial. They just happen because you've got a good understanding of who you're talking to and what they need. That's when marketing becomes more than just selling stuff. It becomes about building relationships and creating value for people's lives. You know how sometimes we talk about big ideas in politics? Well, let's think about this for a moment. Public policy is kind of like trying to herd cats. It's messy, unpredictable, and often ends up looking nothing like what we initially imagined. But here's the thing. Even when things get chaotic, there's usually a method to the madness. Think of public policy as a big puzzle. Each piece represents a different group of people with different needs and concerns. When policymakers try to create policies, they're essentially trying to fit all these pieces together seamlessly. Sounds easy, right? Wrong. It's more like trying to build a house out of Jenga pieces while blindfolded. Now, imagine you're one of those Jenga pieces. How would you feel if someone came along and started rearranging your life without asking? That's basically what happens when public policy affects real people. Some policies might be helpful, but others could be downright confusing or even hurtful. Here's an example. Let's say there's a new law about recycling. On paper, it sounds great. Everyone gets to recycle more easily. But in reality, it might mean people have to change their whole routine or spend extra money on special bins. See what I mean? So, the next time you hear about a new policy, remember that behind every headline is a bunch of people whose lives are being affected. It's not always black and white, and sometimes the best policy isn't always the one that seems the most obvious. You know how sometimes we talk about technology changing everything? Well, when it comes to education, it's kind of like watching a garden grow. At first, you plant seeds, that's what schools used to be, and over time, you see shoots of change sprouting up. Now, imagine those shoots turning into trees, providing shade and shelter for everyone. That's basically what's happening in our education system right now. Technology is slowly becoming the trunk of this tree, supporting everything else. It's not replacing teachers entirely. Think of them more like the wise old owls perched high up in the branches, guiding students through the forest. Instead, tech is giving us new tools to explore, new ways to learn, and new paths to discover knowledge. For instance, online courses are like hidden streams in the woods. They allow people to drink from them whenever they need to, even if they're not near a traditional school. And virtual classrooms? They're like clearing a path through thick underbrush, making it easier for everyone to move forward together. But here's the thing. Just because we have all these new tools doesn't mean we should forget about the soil our education system grew out of. We still need strong foundations, caring mentors, and a sense of community. Technology is just helping us build a bigger, better garden, one that's more accessible, more flexible, and more beautiful than ever before. You know how technology is always changing things around us? Well, it's having quite an impact on the healthcare industry too. Imagine hospitals as bustling beehives, with doctors and nurses buzzing around, taking care of patients. Now, picture these bees wearing smartwatches that track their every move and vital signs. That's kind of what's happening with wearable devices and mobile apps in healthcare. These tools are making it easier for people to manage their health from home. It's like giving patients their own personal nurse, always watching over them and reminding them to take their medication. But here's the thing. While this technology is amazing, it also raises questions. Like, who owns all this data being collected? And what happens if someone hacks into the system? I think the biggest change might be in how we diagnose diseases. Instead of relying solely on symptoms and tests, doctors could use AI to analyze mountains of data and spot patterns we never saw before. It's like having a super smart detective on the case, piecing together clues to solve medical mysteries. But even with all this tech, I believe there's still no substitute for human connection in healthcare. Patients need to feel heard and understood, not just treated like a collection of numbers and codes. So maybe the future isn't about replacing doctors entirely, but about enhancing their abilities with smart tools that help them provide better care. What do you think? Do you see yourself using any of these healthcare technologies in the future? You know how sometimes life feels like a marathon rather than a sprint? That's kind of what I think about when I consider the impact of sports and fitness on our well-being. It's not always about pushing ourselves to the limit every day, but more about finding that steady rhythm that keeps us going. Just like how runners learn to pace themselves, we need to find our own balance between challenge and rest. And you know what's amazing? The way exercise can be both a workout and meditation all at once. It's like our bodies are saying, hey, let's move and breathe at the same time. It's soothing, really. And have you ever noticed how after a good workout, everything just feels lighter? Like we're floating on air for a little while. That's what I call magic. Of course, it's not always easy. Sometimes our minds can be as stubborn as a mule, refusing to budge even when our bodies are ready to move. But here's the thing. Every small step counts. Even just taking a short walk around the block or doing some light stretching can make all the difference. It's like planting a seed. At first, it might not seem like much, but over time, it can grow into something beautiful. So, my friend, I ask you, what's your favorite way to stay active? Does it feel like a chore, or is it something you genuinely look forward to? For me, it's always been about finding activities that bring me joy, whether that's swimming, hiking, or even just dancing to my favorite tunes at home. What about you? You know how sometimes life feels like a roller coaster ride? Well, imagine travel and tourism as that roller coaster, but But instead of twists and turns, we've got ups and downs in demand. Just like how some days the sun shines bright and others hide behind clouds, the travel industry has its own ebb and flow. Picture this. You're planning a trip to a beautiful beach, dreaming of warm sand between your toes and crystal clear waters. But then you hear about rising costs and crowded resorts. That's kind of what's happening in the world of travel right now. Some places are busier than ever, while others feel almost empty. It's like trying to find the perfect spot on a busy beach. Sometimes you have to look a little harder to find your slice of paradise. But here's the thing. Even with all these changes, people still love to travel. They just might be looking for new ways to experience the world. Maybe they're exploring hidden gems closer to home or taking virtual tours online. It's like switching up your favorite recipe. Sometimes you need to try something new to remember why you loved cooking in the first place. So, what does this mean for us travelers? Well, maybe we'll discover new favorite destinations or learn to appreciate the beauty in our own backyard. And who knows, maybe one day we'll look back on these times and smile, remembering how we adapted and found joy in unexpected places. After all, life is full of surprises, and sometimes the best adventures come from embracing change. You know how sometimes we talk about food being more than just sustenance? It's like our taste buds are little travelers, exploring flavors from far-off lands. Think about it. When you bite into a juicy burger, it's almost like taking a trip to America, all in one mouthful. And have you ever tried authentic Chinese dumplings? It's like experiencing a cozy winter evening in Beijing without leaving your kitchen. Food culture is like a rich tapestry, woven from threads of tradition, geography, and personal stories. Each dish tells us something about its people, their history, values, and way of life. For instance, why do we associate curry with India? It's because this flavorful sauce has been a part of Indian cuisine for centuries, reflecting the country's love for spices and its complex cultural heritage. But here's the thing. Food culture isn't static, it evolves over time. Just like how your favorite childhood recipe might get tweaked by future generations, cuisines adapt to new influences and changing tastes. This evolution is what makes food culture so dynamic and exciting. So, the next time you sit down for a meal, remember that you're not just eating. You're experiencing a piece of history, a slice of someone else's life story. Food has this incredible power to connect us across borders and time zones. Now, I'm curious, what's your favorite dish that reminds you of home? Does it have any special meaning behind it? You know how fashion trends come and go, right? It's like watching leaves change colors in autumn. One day they're vibrant reds and oranges, the next they've fallen off. But have you ever stopped to think about why we follow these trends? I mean, besides wanting to fit in or impress people, it's almost like our clothes become part of who we are, don't you think? Like wearing a favorite sweater that reminds you of home. I remember this one time when oversized shirts were all the rage. My friend was so excited to get her hands on one, but she ended up feeling lost in it. She said it made her feel invisible instead of cool. That got me thinking, maybe we should pay attention to what makes us feel good, rather than just following what everyone else is doing. After all, isn't fashion supposed to make us happy? What do you think? Do you ever find yourself wanting to try something new just because it's popular, even if it doesn't really suit you? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. You know how sometimes we talk about change being like a river? Well, the impact on the music industry has been kind of like that too. It's flowed through everything, shaping the landscape in unexpected ways. Take streaming services, for instance. They've changed how people consume music, making it easier than ever to discover new artists, but also creating challenges for established acts. It's a bit like having all the world's songs at your fingertips, but sometimes feeling overwhelmed by choice. Imagine walking into a record store back in the day. You'd browse, pick up albums, listen to snippets before buying. Now, it's more like having every song in the world playing simultaneously in your living room. Some people love this freedom, while others miss the intimacy of physical albums or the ritual of going to concerts. The industry's adapting, though. Artists are finding new ways to connect with fans, like live streams or interactive experiences. It's a shift, but music's still music, right? What do you think about this new era in music consumption? Do you prefer the old way or the new? You know how sometimes we watch movies and feel like we're right there in the action? Well, the impact on the film industry has been kind of like that. It's changed everything, but in ways both big and small. Imagine you're sitting in a cozy little theater, popcorn in hand, and suddenly the whole world outside disappears. That's what technology has done. It's opened up new worlds, let us see things we never could before, and even changed how we make movies. But here's the thing. Just because we can do more doesn't mean we always should. Sometimes I think we lose sight of why we're making films in the first place. It's easy to get caught up in all the bells and whistles, forgetting that at its heart, cinema is about telling stories that touch our hearts. Remember when you watched a movie that made you laugh so hard you snorted your drink out your nose? Or one that made you cry so much you needed tissues? Those moments are still possible, even with all the fancy tech around. The question is, will we keep finding ways to surprise and move each other, or will we just be dazzled by the special effects? Only time will tell, but for now, I'm hopeful that as long as we remember what truly matters, the magic of the movies will live on. You know how sometimes we talk about technology changing everything? Well, the video game industry is no exception. It's like watching a beautiful garden grow and evolve right before your eyes. You see these tiny seeds of ideas planted years ago, and now they've sprouted into massive, lush trees that shade the whole landscape. Games used to be simple affairs, like children's toys compared to the complex, immersive worlds we have today. They've become so sophisticated that they can transport us to other realms, make us feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves. It's almost magical, isn't it? But here's the thing. With great power comes great responsibility. As games get more realistic, they also start to tackle real-world issues. They're not just entertainment anymore. They're tools for learning, for healing, for bringing people together. It's a double-edged sword, really. On one hand, we have these incredible experiences that can change lives. On the other hand, we have to be careful not to lose ourselves in them. It's a delicate balance, but I think that's what makes the industry so exciting. It's always pushing boundaries, always asking questions about what we want from our entertainment and how we want to engage with each other. You know how sometimes we talk about change being like a river? Well, the impact on the book publishing industry has been kind of like that, slow-moving but powerful. It's not dramatic overnight shifts, more like subtle currents that have been reshaping things over time. That I think one of the biggest changes has been the rise of digital platforms. It's like watching a new path emerge alongside the old one. Suddenly, there are all these new ways for authors to reach readers directly, bypassing traditional publishers. But here's the thing. While this has opened doors for many writers, it's also made the market feel a bit flooded. Imagine walking through a forest after a big rain. Everything looks lush and green, but it's hard to see what's truly valuable. Another shift I've noticed is how readers' expectations have changed. They want instant gratification now, like having a book appear in front of them as soon as they blink. This has put pressure on publishers to speed up their processes, which isn't always easy when you're dealing with physical objects. It's a bit like trying to make a slow-cooked meal in a microwave. You might get there faster, but you lose out on some of the richness. Despite all these changes, though, I still believe there's room for both traditional publishing and newer models. It's like having two different types of trees in a forest. Each serves its own purpose, and together they create a richer ecosystem. The key is finding a balance between innovation and preserving what makes books special in the first place. What do you think? Do you prefer the old paths, or are you excited about exploring the new ones? You know how sometimes life feels like a big stage, and we're all just trying to find our place? That's kind of what theater and performing arts do. They help us make sense of this crazy world we live in. It's like looking through a window. You see people's stories, their struggles, their triumphs. And when you watch a play or musical, you're not just watching actors. You're seeing pieces of yourself reflected back. That it's funny, isn't it? How a character's journey can be so relatable, even though it's happening right there on stage. It's like looking into a mirror, but instead of seeing your face, you see your hopes and fears staring back. And that's powerful, because it makes you realize you're not alone in all this. But here's the thing. Theater doesn't just reflect reality, it also shapes it. It's like a ripple in a pond, small at first, but growing bigger and bigger until it changes everything around it. Think about it. Movies and TV shows have become such a huge part of our culture now. They influence how we think, how we dress, even how we speak sometimes. It's wild to think about, isn't it? And yet, despite all this, theater still manages to feel intimate and personal. Like when you're sitting in a tiny theater, surrounded by strangers who suddenly become friends, because you're all sharing in this experience together. It's magical, really. So next time you're feeling lost or unsure, maybe grab a ticket to a show. Who knows? You might just find yourself in the story. You know how sometimes we see ads everywhere we go? It's like walking through a field of wildflowers, but instead of colorful blooms, there are billboards and social media posts. Advertising has become such a big part of our lives, hasn't it? But have you ever stopped to think about how it affects us? Imagine you're at a bustling market, surrounded by vendors calling out their wares. Some catch your eye, some you ignore. That's kind of what advertising does. It tries to catch our attention and make us notice things we might not have seen otherwise. But just like how too many vendors can be overwhelming, sometimes all these ads can feel like they're drowning us out. That I think the real impact comes when we start to see ads as part of who we are. Like, remember that time you saw an ad for a new video game and suddenly found yourself dreaming about playing it? That's when advertising really gets inside our heads. It's not always bad, though. Sometimes those dreams turn into something amazing. But here's the thing. Do you ever wonder if all these ads are really showing us what we need, or if they're just trying to sell us something? It's like asking yourself which path to take in the market. Do you trust your instincts, or let someone else guide you? What do you think about all this? Does it ever make you stop and think about how much advertising shapes our world? You know, the real estate market is a bit like a big old wave, constantly ebbing and flowing. Right now, it seems to be in a bit of a lull, but don't worry, that's just part of the cycle. You see, when the market slows down, it gives buyers more power to negotiate prices. It's like when the tide goes out, revealing hidden treasures suddenly. There are more opportunities for savvy shoppers. But here's the thing. Even in calm waters, there are always ripples beneath the surface. Factors like interest rates and government policies can stir things up quickly. Imagine you're standing on the beach, watching the horizon. One day, everything looks peaceful. The next, a storm is brewing on the other side of the world. That's how fast things can change in real estate. Now, I'm not saying it's all doom and gloom. In fact, sometimes these quiet periods can be a great time to invest. It's like finding a beautiful shell during a low tide. You might just discover something truly special. Just remember, the market will always come back around eventually. The question is, will you be ready to ride the next wave? You know how sometimes life feels like a roller coaster? The stock market can be kind of like that too. Imagine you're sitting in a cozy little copyright, sipping on a warm cup of coffee, watching the world go by through the window. Suddenly, you notice people rushing past, looking worried or excited. That's kind of what happens when the stock market moves. It's like a big game of musical chairs. But instead of chairs, there are companies. And instead of music, there are economic reports and global events. Sometimes, everyone rushes towards one company, making its stock price soar. Other times, they all run away from another, causing its value to drop dramatically. It's fascinating to watch, isn't it? But here's the thing. Even though it might seem scary at first glance, the stock market is actually quite predictable once you understand how it works. It's like learning to read the signs of nature. After a while, you start to recognize patterns. And just like how the weather changes every day, the stock market fluctuates constantly. So, whether you're investing or simply observing, remember that it's normal for things to ebb and flow. As long as you stay informed and patient, you'll find your footing in this ever-changing landscape. You know how sometimes markets can be unpredictable? The cryptocurrency world is no exception. It's like watching a big storm roll and you never quite know when or where the winds will change direction. One day Bitcoin might soar like a hot air balloon, and the next it could drop faster than a stone in a still pond. It's enough to make even the most seasoned traders feel a little queasy. But here's the thing, beneath all the ups and downs, there's often a steady heartbeat. You see, cryptocurrencies aren't just digital money. They're also tools for innovation. They're like seeds planted in fertile ground, waiting to sprout into new ideas and technologies. And just as a garden needs time to grow, so does the crypto market. Take Ethereum, for instance. It started out as just another cryptocurrency, but grew into something much bigger, a platform for building applications. It's like watching a small sprout turn into a mighty oak tree over time. The point is, while the market may seem chaotic, there's often beauty in its complexity. So next time you're feeling anxious about the crypto market, remember, sometimes the best way to navigate a storm is to take a step back, breathe deeply, and watch how things unfold. You know how sometimes you're browsing through your favorite online store, and suddenly you see this beautiful dress that catches your eye? That's kind of what's happening in the e-commerce world right now. It's like a big digital mall where customers can wander around and find exactly what they're looking for. But here's the thing. All this convenience comes with its own set of challenges. Imagine you're trying to build a house using Lego bricks, but every time you think you've got the perfect design, someone comes along and changes the rules. That's kind of what's happening in e-commerce right now. New technologies are emerging every day, making it harder for businesses to keep up. For instance, have you ever heard of augmented reality? It's like putting on magic glasses that let you see how a product would look in your own home before you even buy it. Sounds cool, right? But for stores, it means they need to update their websites and apps constantly to include these new features. It's a bit overwhelming, but also exciting at the same time. So, what do you think will happen next in the world of online shopping? Will we see even more personalized recommendations, or maybe virtual try-ons for clothes? The future is full of possibilities, isn't it? You know how sometimes we scroll through our feeds and feel like we're drowning in a sea of information? That's kind of what's happening to social media platforms right now. They're trying to keep up with all the changes in technology and user behavior, but it's like they're chasing after a moving target. Take Instagram, for instance. It used to be all about sharing pretty pictures, but now it's more like a digital scrapbook where people share bits and pieces of their lives. And let's not forget about TikTok. It's like the wild child of social media, always reinventing itself and keeping users on their toes. But here's the thing. While these platforms are evolving, they're also facing challenges. Some people are getting tired of the constant stream of content and are looking for more meaningful connections online. It's like they're craving a deeper conversation rather than just scrolling through a never-ending feed. So, social media companies are having to think creatively about how to engage users in new ways. Maybe they'll focus more on community building or provide tools for users to connect over shared interests. It's an interesting time for social media, isn't it? Like watching a big experiment unfold before our eyes. And who knows what the future holds? Maybe one day we'll look back at these current platforms and wonder how we ever managed without them. But for now, they're just trying to keep up with us, and sometimes that feels like a bit of a juggling act. You know how sometimes life feels like a puzzle, and suddenly pieces start falling into place? That's kind of what's happening with online learning platforms right now. They're adapting to become more like cozy little homes for knowledge, welcoming students from all corners of the world. It's amazing to think about how far we've come, from dusty old classrooms to virtual lecture halls where anyone can join in. But here's the thing. Just because it's online doesn't mean it's impersonal. Many platforms are now using AI to make learning feel more personal, like having your own tutor who knows exactly what you need. It's a bit like having a magic book that adjusts its reading level just for you. And let me ask you this. Have you ever tried taking an online course during a busy week? It can feel overwhelming at first, but then you realize it's like having a flexible friend who understands when you're too tired to study. They're patient, they're always available, and they never judge. That's the beauty of online learning. It's like having access to a whole library of knowledge right at your fingertips whenever you need it. You know how sometimes life takes us on unexpected journeys? Well, the shift to remote work has been quite the adventure for many of us. It's like we've all become digital nomads, navigating virtual offices and time zones. But here's the thing. While it may feel a bit disorienting at first, this new landscape offers some beautiful opportunities. Imagine your workspace as a garden. It can be wherever you choose to tend it. No more commuting through rush hour traffic or dealing with noisy office distractions. Instead, you get to create your own peaceful oasis, tailored exactly to your needs. Of course, there are challenges too, like trying to find the perfect balance between work and personal life when your home becomes both your office and living space. It's a bit like learning to cook while eating dinner. It takes some getting used to. But think about it this way. Just as plants need sunlight and water to grow, our creativity and productivity thrive when we have the right environment. And isn't it lovely to imagine that your ideal workspace could be anywhere in the world? Maybe you'll find yourself working from a cozy mountain cabin one day and a beachside bungalow the next. The possibilities are endless. So what do you think? Are you embracing this new chapter in remote work culture? I'd love to hear your thoughts. How has it been changing your work-life balance? You know how sometimes we get caught up in the hustle and bustle of life? Well, virtual events and conferences have kind of become our new normal, haven't they? It's like we've all stepped into this big, digital room together, even though we're miles apart. And you know what? I think it's pretty amazing how technology has brought us closer despite the distance. But here's the thing. While virtual events have their perks, no commute, no stuffy suits, more time for networking, they also come with their own set of challenges. Like trying to make eye contact with someone on a screen when you're both wearing masks. It's a bit like trying to read lips through a foggy window, isn't it? Still, I believe there's beauty in this new way of connecting. Imagine walking into a conference hall filled with people from all walks of life, each carrying their own unique perspective. That's exactly what happens in these virtual spaces. We get to experience different cultures, hear diverse viewpoints, and learn from experts across the globe, all from the comfort of our own homes. It's funny, isn't it? Sometimes I find myself wishing for the day when we can all meet in person again. But then I realize how much we've grown accustomed to this digital world. It's like having two favorite pairs of shoes. You love them both for different reasons. What do you think? Do you prefer virtual events or in-person gatherings? I personally enjoy a mix of both. How about you? You know how sometimes life feels like a roller coaster ride? Well, imagine digital marketing strategies as that same roller coaster, but instead of twists and turns, we've got algorithms and trends. It's constantly changing, keeping us all on our toes. But here's the thing. Even though it's unpredictable, there are some steady tracks we can follow. Think of your brand as a cozy little house on this digital landscape. Your job is to make sure it's well lit and welcoming, so people want to stop by. That means being consistent across all platforms, like leaving the porch light on every night. And just as you decorate your home to reflect who you are, your online presence should too. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. There are days when it feels like the whole world is watching, and you're worried about what they'll think. But remember, everyone else is feeling the same way. We're all just trying to create a warm, inviting space for others to enjoy. So take a deep breath, be patient with yourself, and trust that with time, your digital home will become a place where people feel comfortable and valued. You know how sometimes we talk about cybersecurity like it's this big, scary monster lurking in the shadows? Well, let's take a step back and think about it differently. Cybersecurity isn't just about building walls and fortresses. It's more like cultivating a garden. You see, just as a garden needs regular care and attention to thrive, our digital world requires ongoing maintenance to stay healthy and secure. Imagine your computer as a house, and all the data inside as your precious belongings. Just as you lock your doors and keep an eye out for suspicious activity, cybersecurity measures work to protect what's valuable to you online. But here's the thing. No matter how strong your locks are, if you leave your front door open, someone might still find a way in. That's why it's so important to be mindful of our digital habits. Clicking on suspicious links, using weak passwords, or sharing personal info carelessly can be like leaving your door wide open. That it's not about being paranoid. It's about being smart and responsible. Just like how you might invest time in learning about home security, we should educate ourselves about online safety too. And remember, cybersecurity isn't just about protecting against bad guys. It's also about safeguarding our own digital footprints. So next time you're browsing the internet, think of it like walking through a neighborhood. Be aware of your surroundings and always keep your wits about you. You know how sometimes we share our deepest secrets with close friends? Well, imagine if all our private thoughts were out there for everyone to see. That's kind of what's happening with our data online. It's like leaving our front door open, inviting anyone to come in and take a peek around. Data privacy laws try to lock that door, but they're not perfect. They're like a good fence, keeping most people out, but some might still find a way in. The thing is, these laws change over time, like seasons coming and going. Some years they're stricter, others more relaxed. It's a bit like trying to hold water in your hands. It slips through your fingers no matter how hard you squeeze. But here's the thing. Even with imperfect laws, we have a say in how we share our information. We can be mindful of what we post online, like choosing which flowers to display in our garden. And when we do share, we can think of it as giving someone a key to our home, hoping they'll treat it with care. It's not foolproof, but it's a start. What do you think? Do you feel safe sharing things online, or does it make you nervous? You know how sometimes we wonder what the future might hold? Well, when it comes to artificial intelligence, there's a lot to consider. It's kind of like watching a garden grow. You plant the seeds, nurture them, and eventually, you see this beautiful landscape emerge. AI is similar, but instead of flowers, We're cultivating machines that can think and learn. As AI develops, it's opening doors to incredible possibilities. Imagine having a personal assistant who can understand you better than any human ever could. That's what AI is becoming: smarter, more intuitive helpers. But here's the thing: while it's exciting, we need to be careful. We're essentially creating a new form of life, and that raises questions about responsibility and ethics. For instance, have you ever thought about what happens when AI surpasses human intelligence? It's like wondering what would happen if our garden suddenly grew smarter than us. Scary thought, right? But here's the reassuring part: we're working on this. We're trying to make sure AI develops in ways that benefit everyone, not just a select few. It's a complex journey, but one thing's for sure: AI is changing how we live and work. And you know what? That's kind of exciting. It's like watching a new chapter unfold in the story of humanity. What do you think about all this? Do you have any ideas about where AI might take us next? You know how sometimes we talk about technology advancing faster than we can keep up? Well, robotics is right there at the forefront of that. It's like watching a slow motion video of progress unfold before our eyes. The impact on the robotics industry has been profound, reshaping everything from manufacturing lines to healthcare. Imagine robots as skilled artisans, weaving together components with precision and speed that would make even the most accomplished human craftspeople jealous. But here's the thing: while they're taking over some tasks, they're also freeing humans to focus on more creative, high-value work. It's a bit like having a super smart personal assistant who handles all the mundane chores so you can pursue your passions. Of course, there are concerns about job displacement, but many experts argue that this shift will ultimately lead to better, more fulfilling careers for humans. After all, who wouldn't want to spend their days designing innovative solutions rather than repeating assembly line tasks? As we continue down this path, one question that keeps coming up is: what kind of skills will be most valuable in this new landscape? Will we need to become more like the robots, efficient and detail-oriented? Or will we need to cultivate qualities that set us apart, like creativity and empathy? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure: the future of robotics promises to be both exciting and thought-provoking. You know how sometimes we talk about technology moving fast? Well, biotech is kind of like that, but even faster. It's like watching a garden grow overnight. One day, gene editing was this big, scary idea. The next, it's being used to cure diseases we thought were incurable. It's amazing, right? But also a little unsettling. I mean, have you ever wondered what it would be like to live forever? That's basically what some people are working towards now. Of course, there are ethical questions too. Like, should we play God with nature? Or is it okay to push boundaries if it means saving lives? I guess the real question is, where do we draw the line between progress and playing with fire? It's a tricky one. Some folks say we should slow down and think more about the consequences. Others argue we need to keep pushing forward, no matter what. What do you think? Do you see biotech changing our world for better or worse? Or maybe a bit of both? You know how sometimes we talk about big changes happening all around us? Well, when it comes to our energy sources, something pretty remarkable is taking place. Renewable energy is slowly but surely becoming the new norm. It's like watching a garden grow. At first, it might seem slow, but before you know it, those seeds have turned into beautiful flowers. Solar panels and wind turbines are sprouting up everywhere, catching the sun's rays and harnessing the breeze. They're not just pretty to look at either. They're hard workers, churning out clean energy for our homes and businesses. Now, I'm not saying we've solved all our problems overnight, but we're definitely moving in the right direction. Just imagine if every roof had solar panels shining bright as stars, or if every hillside was dotted with windmills dancing in the wind. That's the future we're building, one renewable step at a time. And you know what? It feels good to be part of this change. What do you think about this shift towards renewables? Do you see yourself using any of these sources in your daily life soon? You know how sometimes we get caught up in our daily routines and forget to breathe? That's kind of what's happening with our planet right now. We've been living life at such a fast pace that we've forgotten to take care of the very ground beneath our feet. Imagine Earth as a beautiful garden. We've been watering it with plastic bottles instead of rainwater and fertilizing it with pollution. It's amazing how much damage we can do when we're not paying attention. But here's the thing: every small action we take can be like planting a tiny seed of change. You might wonder, what can I do? Well, let me tell you. Even the smallest actions count, like choosing to carry a reusable bag instead of using plastic ones, or deciding to walk instead of driving for short distances. These little choices add up over time, just like how many seeds planted together become a lush forest. Remember, we're not just talking about saving the planet. We're talking about creating a better world for ourselves too. A world where clean air is as common as fresh water, where children can play outside without worrying about toxic fumes, and where future generations inherit a healthy, thriving planet. So next time you reach for a plastic bottle or a disposable cup, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is this really necessary? And if the answer is no, choose differently. Your choice might seem insignificant on its own, but collectively, we can make a real difference. We can nurture this garden called Earth back to health, one small step at a time. You know how sometimes we feel small in the grand scheme of things? Climate change can make us feel that way too. But here's the thing. Every small action we take adds up. It's like dropping pebbles into a pond. At first, you don't see much happen, but over time, ripples spread out. You might wonder, what can one person do against such a big problem? The answer is more than you think. Every choice we make, whether it's using public transport or turning off lights, creates a ripple effect. And when we share our knowledge with others, those ripples grow even bigger. Remember that climate change isn't just about polar bears and melting ice caps. It's about the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the future we want to build. So, let's start small, be consistent, and trust that together, we can create significant change. After all, as the saying goes, be the change you wish to see in the world. You know how sometimes life feels like a stormy sea, and disaster relief efforts are like trying to calm those waves? Well, imagine being part of a team that's out there paddling against the tide, day after day. It's not easy, but it's crucial work. You see, disasters don't just destroy buildings, they shatter lives too. That's why relief efforts aren't just about handing out food and shelter, they're about rebuilding hope. Take Hurricane Katrina, for instance. The floodwaters might have receded, but the real challenge was helping people find their way back to normalcy. It's like when you lose your favorite book, you can replace it, but finding that same sense of comfort takes time. Disaster relief isn't just about providing aid. It's about being there for those who've lost everything, listening to their stories, and helping them rediscover their place in the world. You might wonder how such efforts make a difference when faced with such massive destruction. Well, think of it this way, every small act of kindness is like planting a seed. At first, it might seem insignificant, but over time, those seeds grow into strong trees that provide shade and shelter. That's what disaster relief does. It's not just about immediate needs, but about creating a foundation for long-term healing and recovery. You know how sometimes we talk about big ideas, but they feel kind of abstract? Like, what does it even mean for countries to have good relationships with each other? Well, let me try to break it down in a way that might make sense. Imagine you're at a big family gathering. Everyone's chatting, laughing, and having a good time. That's kind of what it's like when countries get along well internationally. They're all working together, sharing ideas, and helping each other out. It's not always perfect, but they can usually find common ground. Now, think about it like a big puzzle. Each country is a piece, and when they work together, they create this beautiful picture. But sometimes, pieces don't fit quite right, and that's when things can get tricky. The thing is, even when countries disagree, they often find ways to compromise and move forward. Let me give you an example. Remember how countries came together to fight climate change? That was a big deal. They put aside their differences and worked towards a common goal. It wasn't easy, but they made progress. So, when we talk about international relations, we're really talking about how these big pieces of the puzzle fit together. It's not always easy, but when it works well, it can lead to some amazing things. And who knows, maybe one day we'll have a world where all these pieces fit together perfectly. You know how sometimes life feels like a big puzzle? Well, the impact on our global economy is kind of like trying to fit all those pieces together. It's complex, but let's break it down a bit. Imagine the world as one big market, where countries are all connected through trade. Now, when one part of this market gets affected, it's like ripples in a pond. It spreads out and touches everything around it. For instance, think of what happened during the pandemic. Countries had to lock down, which meant people couldn't work or travel. This was like pulling a thread from that big puzzle. It caused a chain reaction. Some industries thrived, like home delivery services, while others struggled, like airlines. But here's the thing. Even though it was tough, we found ways to adapt. We learned to appreciate the little things and support each other more. It's like when you have to take a detour on your way home. You might discover a new route that's actually nicer. So, in a way, the pandemic showed us that our global economy is resilient. It's like that old saying goes, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. We've been making lemonade, and it tastes pretty good. Of course, there are still challenges ahead, but I think we're getting better at solving them together. What do you think? How do you see our global economy evolving in the future? You know how sometimes life feels like a puzzle, and we're all trying to find our place? Immigration policies are kind of like that too. They're attempts to fit together different pieces of society, but it's never easy. Imagine you're building a house, and each brick represents a person from a different country. Some bricks might fit perfectly, while others might need a little adjusting. That's what immigration policies try to do, figure out how to make everyone feel welcome and secure. It's interesting because people often have strong opinions about this topic. Some folks see immigrants as guests who should follow certain rules, while others view them as fellow travelers on life's journey. Either way, it's a delicate balance. Just like how a river needs both banks to flow smoothly, countries need both native-born citizens and newcomers to thrive. The question is, how do we create policies that allow for growth without causing turbulence? Let me ask you this. Have you ever moved to a new town or started a new job? How did you feel when you first arrived? It's probably similar to what many immigrants experience when they come to a new country. They're excited about new opportunities, but also nervous about fitting in. That's why I think we should approach immigration policies with empathy and understanding, as if we were welcoming a new neighbor into our community. You know how sometimes we take our surroundings for granted? Like, have you ever stopped to think about all the little things we throw away every day? It's amazing when you really consider it. We generate so much waste. It's like a never-ending river of stuff. But here's the thing. What we toss aside doesn't just disappear. It ends up somewhere, often harming our planet along the way. Imagine your home as a garden. What would happen if you kept throwing trash onto your lawn? Pretty soon, it'd be hard to see the flowers through all the weeds. That's kind of what's happening globally. Our waste is choking our environment, making it harder for nature to thrive. Now, I'm not trying to scare you. The good news is that there are ways to make a difference. Simple changes in our daily habits could turn this tide, like choosing products with less packaging, composting food scraps, or even just taking a few extra seconds to recycle. These small actions might seem insignificant on their own, but together they add up. So next time you're about to throw something away, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is this really necessary? Or better yet, can I reuse this somehow? Your choices matter more than you might realize. They're part of a bigger story we're all writing together, one that determines the health of our world for generations to come. You know how sometimes life feels like a vast, dark ocean? That's kind of what existential despair can feel like, overwhelming and endless. It's when we start questioning everything, our purpose, the meaning of life, even our own existence. It's normal to have doubts, but when it becomes all-consuming, it can be tough to cope. Imagine being lost in a dense forest without a map or compass. Every step feels uncertain, and you wonder if there's even a way out. That's what existential despair can feel like, being lost without direction. But here's the thing, we're all on this journey together. We've all felt lost at some point. That it's okay to not have all the answers. In fact, it's more than okay, it's human. We're complex beings with messy thoughts and emotions. Our minds can play tricks on us, making us feel like we're alone in our despair, but we're not alone. There's always someone who understands, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. And sometimes, just talking about how we feel can help clarify things. It's like shining a light through the fog. Slowly but surely, we start to see our way out. Remember, existential despair isn't a sign of weakness. It's actually quite common, especially during times of change or uncertainty. It's a reminder that we're thinking deeply about life, which is beautiful in itself. So, take a deep breath and remember that you're part of something much bigger than yourself. Your existence matters, even if you can't see exactly where you're headed right now. Keep moving forward, one step at a time. And if you need help along the way, don't hesitate to reach out. You're not alone in this vast ocean called life. You know how sometimes life feels meaningless? That's kind of what nihilism is all about. It's this idea that nothing we do really matters in the grand scheme of things. But here's the thing. Even if that's true, we still have our own lives to live. It's like being on a train ride without knowing where we're going. We can still enjoy the view or strike up conversations with our fellow passengers. Nihilism can feel scary at first, like being lost in a dark forest without a map. But it can also be freeing. Imagine if you didn't have to worry about what others thought of you or what the future held. You could just focus on living in the moment, doing things that bring you joy. Even if they don't change the world, it's not always easy, though. Sometimes nihilism can make us wonder why bother trying at all. That's why it's important to find meaning in small things: a beautiful sunset, a good cup of coffee, a kind word to a friend. These moments may seem insignificant, but they add up to a life worth living. So, does nihilism mean nothing matters? Not necessarily. It means we get to decide what matters to us. And that's a pretty powerful thing. You know how sometimes life feels like a dark forest? That's kind of what we're exploring here. Dark philosophy in literature and art often uses imagery like shadows, night skies, and mysterious landscapes to represent the unknown or the unknowable. It's like trying to grasp a handful of sand. The harder you squeeze, the more it slips away. Think of Edgar Allan Poe's Raven, perched on a bust of Pallas, speaking only one word: nevermore. It's this haunting reminder that some truths might be beyond our reach. This kind of philosophy often questions the nature of reality, morality, and existence. It's like standing at the edge of a cliff, wondering what lies beyond the horizon. Some artists and writers delve deep into human psychology, revealing the darker corners of our minds. They might explore themes of suffering, death, and the absurdity of life. It's a bit like looking into a mirror that shows us aspects of ourselves we'd rather ignore. But even in the darkness, there can be beauty and meaning. After all, isn't it in the shadows that stars shine brightest? You know how sometimes life feels like walking through a dense forest? Every step forward brings new challenges, but each one also reveals hidden wonders. That's kind of what philosophers have been exploring when they talk about the role of suffering in their thoughts. They've found that even in the darkest moments, there's often beauty waiting to be discovered. It's like finding a rare flower blooming through cracks in the sidewalk. It might seem out of place, but it's still beautiful. Philosophers have used suffering as a lens to examine deeper questions about existence, morality, and what makes life meaningful. They've asked things like, what can we learn about ourselves when we're pushed to our limits? Or, how does pain shape us as people? It's not always easy to look at, but they believe it helps us grow stronger, just like how trees develop deeper roots after facing harsh weather. For example, think of the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates. He believed that suffering could be a teacher, revealing truths about ourselves and the world around us. He'd ask probing questions to help others see their own ignorance, kind of like shining a light through fog to reveal hidden shapes. His method was tough, but it aimed to lead people towards wisdom and self-awareness. So, while suffering isn't something we'd choose for its own sake, philosophers have found value in examining it closely. It's like studying a complex painting. You might find beauty in unexpected places if you look deeply enough. Of course, this doesn't mean we should seek out suffering, but rather that we can find ways to transform even difficult experiences into opportunities for growth and understanding. You know how sometimes life feels like a river, constantly flowing and changing? Well, death is kind of like reaching the ocean at the end of that journey. It's not scary, but more like, well, have you ever watched a leaf fall from a tree? It floats gently down, twirling around its axis, completely at peace with where it's going. That's kind of what death is like, just this natural movement towards the end of our journey. Of course, it can be hard for us to imagine because we've never experienced it before, but maybe that's why people have always been curious about it. Some philosophers think that when we die, our consciousness just dissolves into nothingness, like mist evaporating on a sunny day. Others believe we become one with something greater than ourselves, like merging with the river itself. But here's the thing. Whether or not there's an afterlife, I think the most important part is how we live our lives now. We get to choose how we navigate those waters, you know? So let's make sure we're living fully, loving deeply, and finding joy in every moment. Because even though death is inevitable, it doesn't have to be frightening. It's just another step in life's grand adventure. You know how sometimes we feel compelled to push boundaries, to go further than others might be willing? It's like being drawn to a beautiful sunset, but wanting to see what lies beyond the horizon. The pursuit of truth can be like that, alluring yet unsettling. As we venture deeper into uncharted territory, we must consider the cost of our journey. Are we willing to sacrifice our relationships, our reputation, even our sense of self? It's a delicate balance between uncovering hidden truths and losing ourselves in the process. Consider this. A journalist risks everything to expose corruption, potentially changing lives forever. But what happens when the story becomes more about the teller than the tale itself? In the end, perhaps the greatest truth we seek is within us all along, waiting to be acknowledged rather than discovered. You know how sometimes we find ourselves lost in thought, wandering through the darker corners of our minds? It's like taking a stroll through a misty forest, eerie yet fascinating. As we delve deeper into these philosophical musings, we might start to feel a sense of unease creeping in. Our thoughts become tangled in knots of existential questions. What lies beyond the veil of reality? Is there any inherent meaning to life? Or are we just floating aimlessly in an indifferent universe? These ponderings can be both captivating and unsettling. They challenge us to confront the unknown, much like standing at the edge of a vast ocean, feeling the salty spray on our skin and gazing out at the endless horizon. But here's the thing. While exploring these depths can be unnerving, it can also be incredibly liberating. By facing our fears and doubts head-on, we may discover hidden strengths within ourselves. We learn to appreciate the beauty in uncertainty and find solace in the mystery of existence. So, I often wonder, what do you think lies at the heart of this fascination with the darker aspects of philosophy? Is it a desire to understand the unknown, or perhaps a need to confront our own mortality? Perhaps it's a mix of both? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you ever find yourself drawn to these kinds of questions? And if so, what do you hope to gain from exploring them? You know how sometimes we get caught up in life's hustle and bustle? It's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. Dark philosophy, while often misunderstood, offers a unique perspective on our existence. Imagine life as a canvas, some see vibrant colors, others stark shadows. The influence of dark philosophy isn't about embracing negativity. It's about acknowledging the complexity of human nature. It encourages us to confront our fears and doubts head-on, much like facing a mirror when we're not sure who's looking back. Consider the concept of nihilism. It's not about rejecting all meaning, but about questioning what gives our lives significance. In today's fast-paced world, this introspection can be both challenging and liberating. As we navigate our way through life's trials and tribulations, perhaps we should embrace the darkness within ourselves, not as a source of despair, but as an opportunity for growth and self-awareness. After all, don't we find beauty in the night sky, even when the stars are hidden behind clouds? You know how sometimes we find ourselves drawn to ideas that seem a little mysterious, a little unsettling? That's what happened with many historical figures who explored the darker corners of philosophy. Take Friedrich Nietzsche, for instance. He's often seen as the father of existentialism, but his ideas were also tinged with a sense of the abyss. Imagine him standing at the edge of a deep chasm, looking out at the void below. That's kind of what he was exploring, the meaninglessness of life, but also its profound significance. Nietzsche isn't alone in this journey. There's Arthur Schopenhauer, who saw life as a constant struggle against suffering. Picture him as a sailor trying to navigate treacherous waters, always aware of the dangers lurking beneath the surface. And then there's Jean-Paul Sartre, who believed we're all responsible for creating our own meaning in life. It's like being an artist painting a picture, knowing every brushstroke counts. These thinkers weren't just dwelling on darkness. They were trying to understand it, to make sense of it. They saw how our existence is fragile, how we're all just temporary visitors in this world. But in that fragility, they found a strange kind of freedom. It's like realizing you can choose your own path, even when the road ahead seems uncertain. So, what do you think? Does exploring these darker ideas help us appreciate the beauty of life more? Or does it just leave us feeling lost and alone? It's a complex question, isn't it? But maybe that's part of the journey, finding our own way through the shadows. You know how sometimes we feel lost in the dark, unsure which way to turn? That's kind of like the beginning of our journey towards enlightenment. It's when we realize we don't have all the answers, and that's actually a beautiful thing. The darkness can be scary, but it's also full of possibility. Imagine you're standing in a forest at night, and you can't see very far ahead. You might feel a little anxious, but you could also feel excited to discover what's around the next bend. As we move through this darkness, we start to notice things we hadn't seen before. The stars twinkling above, the sound of crickets, the feeling of dew on our skin. These small wonders are like tiny sparks of light guiding us forward. And slowly but surely, we begin to understand more about ourselves and the world around us. It's like gradually turning up the dimmer switch on a lamp. We're not suddenly flooded with light, but we can see enough to take our next step. The key is to trust that even though we can't see everything right now, we're moving in the right direction. We're becoming wiser, kinder, and more compassionate people. And when we finally reach a place of greater understanding, it's not because the darkness went away, but because we learned to embrace it and find beauty within it. So the next time you feel lost in the dark, remember, you're not alone, and you're exactly where you need to be on your journey towards enlightenment. You know how sometimes we see things in the world that make us wonder? Like when we witness great kindness or terrible cruelty. Philosophers have been pondering this stuff for ages, trying to understand what makes people do good or bad deeds. Some folks think evil is just the absence of goodness, like darkness without light. Others believe it's a force all its own, like a shadow that follows us around. Imagine evil as a weed in a garden. It might sprout up unexpectedly, but it doesn't grow unless there's soil to nourish it. That's why philosophers often talk about how our choices shape the world around us. They say we have the power to cultivate goodness or let evil take root. But here's the thing. Even the kindest among us can struggle with darker impulses from time to time. It's like having a small, persistent stain on our favorite shirt. It's hard to get rid of completely. Oh, what does this mean for us? Well, maybe it's okay if we're not perfect. Maybe our job is just to keep trying to be good, even when it's hard. After all, every small act of kindness can push back against evil, like ripples on a pond. And who knows? Sometimes those ripples can spread far beyond what we imagine. You know how sometimes life feels like a puzzle we're trying to piece together? Well, exploring dark philosophy can be like looking at that puzzle from a different angle. It might show us some shadows we hadn't noticed before, but it can also help us understand why things are the way they are. When we delve into these ideas, it's like taking a step back from our daily lives and seeing the bigger picture. This can actually bring us closer to others, because we start to appreciate how fragile and precious everything is. It's kind of like holding a delicate flower. You realize how easily things can be hurt, but also how beautiful they are. Dark philosophy isn't about being gloomy. It's more about facing reality with open eyes. For instance, think about how many people struggle silently with mental health issues. By acknowledging these truths, we might become better listeners and companions. Of course, it's not always easy. Sometimes it can feel like we're walking through a dark forest without a map. But in the end, isn't that what makes life so interesting? The journey, with all its twists and turns, is what shapes us into who we are today. So, I guess my point is, exploring these deeper ideas can actually help us connect more deeply with others, even if it doesn't always feel that way at first. It's like finding a hidden path through the woods. It might take some effort, but it can lead to amazing views. You know how sometimes you get this gut feeling about things? Like when you walk into a room and suddenly feel like something's off, even though nothing obvious stands out. That's kind of what I mean by intuition in dark philosophical thinking. It's like having a sixth sense for the deeper truths beneath the surface. When we delve into the darker corners of existence, our intuition often guides us towards questions we might otherwise overlook. For instance, have you ever felt a shiver run down your spine while contemplating the meaninglessness of life? That's probably your intuition nudging you to explore the implications further. It's not always easy to put into words, but trust that instinct when it whispers secrets about the nature of reality. After all, some of history's greatest thinkers relied heavily on their intuition to challenge conventional wisdom and uncover profound insights. So next time you catch yourself wondering about the mysteries of the universe, listen to that quiet voice inside. It might be trying to show you something remarkable. You know how sometimes life feels like a puzzle we can't quite piece together? That's kind of what Eastern and Western dark philosophies are exploring. They're both looking at the darker corners of existence, but they approach it differently. Imagine Eastern philosophy as a slow-moving river. It flows gently, accepting whatever comes its way. It teaches us to embrace suffering and find meaning in impermanence. On the other hand, Western philosophy might be more like a stormy sea. It tosses questions around, trying to make sense of why things have to be so difficult. Both perspectives acknowledge that life isn't always easy, but they suggest different ways of dealing with that reality. The Eastern view often encourages detachment and acceptance, while the Western one might push us to question and rebel against our circumstances. That it's interesting to think about which approach resonates more with you personally. Do you feel drawn to the peaceful acceptance of change, or do you prefer to challenge the status quo? Either way, understanding these different viewpoints can help us navigate life's challenges with more wisdom and compassion. You know how sometimes we feel empty inside, like there's this hollow space that we can't quite fill no matter what we do? That's kind of what philosophers mean when they talk about nothingness. It's not just the absence of things, but more like, have you ever been in a room after everyone left and all the furniture was gone? It felt strange, right? Like the emptiness itself had a presence. That's what nothingness feels like. But here's the thing. Even in that empty room, there's still air, shadows, and silence. So maybe nothingness isn't truly nothing at all. Maybe it's just a different kind of fullness. Does that make sense? It's a pretty mind-bending idea, isn't it? You know how sometimes our minds wander while we're drifting off to sleep? It's as if our subconscious takes us on a journey through the labyrinth of our own thoughts. Nightmares and dreams, they're like two sides of the same coin, aren't they? One side shows us our deepest fears, while the other reveals hidden desires. Imagine your mind as a canvas, constantly painting vivid scenes. Some nights, those brushstrokes might create a dark landscape filled with monsters lurking in every shadow. Other times, they might craft a beautiful garden where anything seems possible. Both are valid expressions of our inner world. But here's the thing. Nightmares often feel more real than dreams. They can leave us shaken, wondering if we'll ever find peace. Yet, perhaps they serve as warnings, urging us to confront our anxieties head-on. Dreams, on the other hand, might seem fleeting but could hold secrets about our true selves. So, what do you think? Do you believe our dreams and nightmares offer glimpses into our psyche, or are they simply the brain's way of processing the day's events? I've always wondered if there's a way to tap into this inner wisdom, to learn from both the shadows and the light within ourselves. What do you think? You know how sometimes we wonder what drives innovation? It's interesting to think about how darker ideas have influenced tech over time. Take existentialism, for instance. It's like this philosophical cloud hanging over humanity, questioning our purpose. Some folks might see that as bleak, but others view it as liberating. They argue it sparked creativity in fields like AI and robotics. It's like we're building our own digital existence, questioning what it means to be alive. Some tech leaders even talk about creating artificial intelligences that could potentially surpass human intelligence. It's a complex dance between optimism and fear. They're pushing boundaries, but also grappling with what it means to be human in this brave new world. It's a bit unsettling, but also kind of exciting to think about where this journey might lead us. You know how sometimes we explore the darker corners of life? It's like wandering through a forest at dusk, feeling the shadows grow longer around us. In science, there are times when researchers delve into similar territories. They might study things that seem a bit unsettling or even taboo. Now, this isn't always bad, often it leads to important discoveries. But here's the thing. When we play with fire, we have to be careful not to get burned. Ethical questions arise, like, what are we doing exactly? Why are we doing it? And what could be the consequences? Let me give you an example. Imagine scientists studying human behavior under extreme conditions. They might create scenarios that feel a bit like a horror movie. While this could help us understand people better, it also raises questions about consent and safety. It's kind of like walking a tightrope. We want to learn, but we don't want to fall off. So, researchers need to be mindful of their actions. They should consider whether their work could harm others or society as a whole. It's a delicate balance between pushing boundaries and respecting limits. After all, knowledge is powerful, but so is responsibility. As we explore the unknown, we have to remember that our discoveries can shape the world we live in. It's a big responsibility, but one that comes with great rewards too. You know how sometimes we get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life? It's easy to lose sight of what truly matters when our days are filled with tasks and responsibilities. But have you ever stopped to think about time itself? Not just the passing hours and minutes, but the concept of time as a whole. Imagine time as a river, constantly flowing, yet always remaining the same river. We're all floating on this river together, each of us experiencing our own unique journey. Some of us might be paddling furiously upstream, while others drift lazily downstream. Yet despite our differences, we're all connected by this shared experience. Now, let's consider the idea of eternity. Is it possible that there's more to existence than the finite stretch of time we perceive? Perhaps eternity isn't something we'll experience after death, but rather a quality present within every moment. Think of it as the depth of a lake, no matter how far down you dive. There's always more water beneath you. As we ponder these questions, remember that true wisdom often lies in embracing the mystery. There may never be definitive answers, but the act of questioning itself can lead us to profound insights. So take a deep breath, relax into the present, and allow yourself to float on the river of time. Who knows what hidden depths you might discover? You know how sometimes life feels like a dense forest, and we're all just trying to find our way through? Well, emotions play a big role in navigating that journey. They're like the compass in our hearts, guiding us towards what matters most. Fear might make us pause at the edge of a cliff, while excitement could push us to climb higher. And sadness, well, it's like rain washing away the dirt, revealing hidden paths we never knew existed. But here's the thing, emotions aren't always easy to understand. It's like trying to read a book written in invisible ink. Sometimes we need to tilt our heads just right to see the words. That's why philosophers have been exploring this topic for centuries. They're asking questions like, what does it mean to truly feel something? Is there a difference between happiness and joy? For instance, imagine you're standing on a mountaintop, feeling proud of all you've accomplished. That's happiness. But now picture yourself sitting by a peaceful lake, watching the sunset with loved ones. That's joy. Both are beautiful, but they feel different, don't they? Emotions help us connect with others and with ourselves. They remind us that we're alive, that we care, that we feel deeply. And yet, they can also lead us astray if we let them rule our thoughts. It's like having a loyal companion. Sometimes we need to take the reins, but other times we just need to enjoy the ride. So, the next time you find yourself lost in thought, remember that your emotions are like old friends. They've been with you through thick and thin, and they have stories to tell if you only listen closely enough. You know how sometimes we find ourselves lost in thought, wandering through the shadows of our minds? That's kind of what happens when dark philosophy influences music and film. It's like taking a stroll through a moonlit forest, eerie yet beautiful. These creative works often explore themes of existentialism, nihilism, and the human condition. They challenge us to question life's meaning and purpose, much like staring up at the stars on a clear night. Take, for instance, the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It delves into the nature of memory and love, leaving viewers pondering long after the credits roll. In music, artists like Nine Inch Nails and Radiohead weave intricate soundscapes that mirror the complexity of our inner struggles. Their lyrics often touch on feelings of alienation and disconnection, resonating deeply with those who felt isolated or misunderstood. Dark philosophy in art isn't about spreading despair. Rather, it's about acknowledging the complexities of existence and inviting us to reflect on our place within the grand scheme of things. You know how sometimes you're sitting there, and suddenly you realize you're aware? That's consciousness. It's like having a little light bulb in your head that flickers on when you wake up each morning. Some philosophers think this light bulb might be an illusion, like a dream we never wake from. They say maybe our brains are just processing information without us even noticing. But others believe consciousness is real, and it's what makes us who we are. It's like having a special key that unlocks all our thoughts and feelings. Some even think consciousness might be connected to the universe as a whole, like we're all part of this big cosmic dance. But here's the thing, no one really knows for sure what consciousness is or how it works. It's still a mystery that scientists and philosophers are trying to unravel. So maybe instead of thinking about it too much, We should just appreciate having this awareness, this spark within us that makes life so rich and meaningful. What do you think? Does it feel real to you, this sense of being aware? You know how sometimes life feels like walking through a dense forest? That's kind of what happens when we explore the impact of dark philosophy on political ideologies. It's a journey that can be both fascinating and unsettling. Dark philosophy often touches on themes of existentialism, nihilism, and the human condition. These ideas can seep into politics, influencing how people view power, morality, and society. Imagine a river. Its source might be pure, but as it flows, it can pick up all sorts of things along the way. Similarly, dark philosophical ideas can start as abstract concepts, but end up shaping real-world policies and beliefs. It's interesting to consider how this might affect our collective sense of purpose and direction. For instance, take the concept of nothingness from existentialist thought. In politics, this could manifest as a rejection of traditional values or institutions. It's a complex dance between individual freedom and societal structure. As we ponder this, remember that even in darkness, there's always a glimmer of light. The key is to approach these ideas with curiosity rather than fear, allowing us to grow from our reflections. You know how sometimes life feels like a wild roller coaster ride? That's kind of what chaos theory is all about in dark philosophy. It suggests that even when we think we've got things under control, tiny changes can send everything spiraling out of balance. Imagine you're standing on a tightrope over a deep chasm. One wrong step, and down you go. That's basically what chaos theory says happens in complex systems, that it's a bit unsettling, isn't it? But here's the thing. This unpredictability might actually be what makes life interesting. Like when you're driving home from work and suddenly hit traffic. At first, you feel frustrated, but then you start noticing all these little moments of birds singing, a kid waving at you from a car window. These tiny interruptions remind us that there's beauty in the unexpected. Maybe instead of fighting against chaos, we should learn to embrace it. After all, life is full of surprises, both big and small. And who knows? Sometimes those unexpected twists can lead us exactly where we need to be. You see, when we delve into the darker corners of philosophy, logic becomes our trusty lantern, guiding us through the shadows. It's like trying to find your way through a dense forest. Every step, every decision, relies on the light of reason. But here's the thing. Sometimes that lantern can be a bit too bright, casting harsh shadows that make us question everything. That's where the beauty of logical reasoning comes in. It allows us to navigate those tricky paths without getting lost in the underbrush of emotions or assumptions. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're standing at a crossroads, wondering which path to take. Logic would say, well, let's look at the facts. This road leads to a mountain, that one to a valley. But what if neither option seems perfect? That's when we need to dig deeper, to examine our own motivations and desires. It's like peering into a still pond. The surface may seem calm, but beneath the surface, currents are always moving. Logic helps us understand those currents, to predict how they might affect our journey to in the end. Logic isn't about finding definitive answers. It's about having the courage to ask the questions. And sometimes, the most profound insights come from embracing the uncertainty, from acknowledging that there's more to life than what we can logically explain. So, I ask you, what's the darkest philosophical question you've ever pondered? How did you approach it with logic? You know how sometimes we all feel a little off-kilter? Like our minds are spinning around in circles while the rest of us tries to stay grounded? That's kind of what philosophers mean when they talk about madness and sanity. It's not always easy to tell where one ends and the other begins. Some folks might see madness as being lost in a world that doesn't make sense, while others might view it as seeing things that others can't. Sanity, on the other hand, could be seen as finding ways to navigate this crazy world despite its flaws. But here's the thing. Maybe there isn't really such a clear divide between the two. Maybe we're all just trying to find our own way through life's maze, some of us taking more interesting routes than others. Take Vincent van Gogh, for instance. To many, he was mad, his paintings full of swirling colors and distorted shapes. Yet to others, he was sane enough to see beauty in a world that often overlooked it. So, I guess my question to you would be, what do you think is madness? Is it seeing things that aren't there, or is it seeing things that others don't want to see? You know how sometimes we find ourselves drawn to certain styles or aesthetics? It's almost as if our souls are whispering to us, guiding us towards looks that resonate deep within. This connection between our inner world and outer expression is what I think of when considering the influence of dark philosophy on fashion and aesthetics. Imagine walking through a misty forest at dusk. The shadows dance across the trees, casting intricate patterns on the ground. It's a bit like how dark philosophy can shape our sense of style. Think of it this way. Just as the mysterious forest floor invites us to explore its secrets, dark philosophy invites us to delve into the complexities of life and death, light and darkness. For instance, consider the allure of black clothing. Is it simply because it hides stains well, or does it represent the unknown, the void we all face? Perhaps it's both. The same could be said for the popularity of Gothic architecture and design. It speaks to our fascination with the mysterious and the sublime. But here's the thing. This isn't just about looking cool or trying to fit into a particular scene. It's about embracing the beauty in the unknown, in the shadows. It's about recognizing that even in the darkest corners of existence, there's often a strange kind of elegance waiting to be discovered. So, the next time you catch yourself gravitating towards darker, more mysterious styles, remember that you might be tapping into something deeper than just surface-level trends. You might be connecting with the eternal dance between light and dark, life and death, within yourself and around you. Pretty profound, right? You know how sometimes we feel like we've reached the end of the road? That's kind of what physicists mean when they talk about nothingness in the universe. It's not actually empty space, but more like the silence between notes in music. In quantum mechanics, even empty space isn't truly empty. There are always particles popping in and out of existence. Imagine a room full of people, then suddenly everyone disappears. But here's the thing. The room itself still exists, even if it's empty. It's like the echo of presence. Cosmologists explore this idea further. They consider what happened before the Big Bang, which is often called the multiverse. It's hard to wrap our heads around, but think of it like a dream within a dream. The multiverse theory suggests that our universe could be part of a much larger reality, similar to how a dream might contain other dreams. This concept challenges our understanding of time and space, making us realize how little we truly know about the nature of existence. It's humbling, yet exciting to ponder these mysteries. You know how sometimes we look out at the world and wonder what's really going on beneath the surface? It's kind of like trying to see through a foggy window. We catch glimpses, but the truth remains elusive. Philosophers have been pondering this question for centuries, and there's no one definitive answer. Some think reality might be more like a dream, while others believe it's solid as stone. Maybe it's a bit of both, shifting and changing as we observe it. Consider this. Imagine you're floating on a river, watching the landscape pass by. From your perspective, everything seems fixed and certain. But from a bird flying overhead, the same scene looks completely different. That's kind of how philosophers view reality. It depends on our vantage point. So what do you think? Does reality feel stable and unchanging to you? Or does it seem more fluid and subjective? You know how sometimes you get this nagging feeling that there's more to things than what we can see? That's kind of like intuition. It's this gut sense that can lead us to amazing discoveries, even in science. Think of it like having a hunch about where to dig for buried treasure. Sometimes, our rational minds might not understand why we feel a certain way, but our intuition keeps pushing us forward. Take Einstein, for instance. He had this crazy idea that time and space aren't fixed, but flexible. Sounds wild, right? But he trusted his gut feeling about it. And guess what? It turned out to be true. His theory of relativity revolutionized physics. Now, I'm not saying we should always trust our gut above all else. But when it comes to scientific discoveries, intuition can be this spark that ignites a whole chain reaction of thought and exploration. It's like having a sixth sense that helps us see patterns we might otherwise miss. And who knows, maybe one day, someone's intuition about dark matter or dark energy could lead to a breakthrough that changes everything we think we know about the universe. The key is learning to listen to that quiet voice inside us, even when it doesn't make perfect sense at first. After all, sometimes the craziest ideas can lead to the most incredible discoveries. You know how sometimes we feel small compared to nature? That's kind of what dark philosophy does to our thinking about the environment. It makes us realize how insignificant we are in the grand scheme of things. Imagine standing on a mountain peak, feeling the wind, and seeing for miles. That's what this way of thinking does. It can be both beautiful and unsettling. Some philosophers argue that because we're so tiny, we shouldn't worry too much about saving the planet. They say nature will find a way to heal itself, even if we mess things up. But others believe our actions still matter, no matter how small they seem. They say every choice we make has some impact, like adding a single grain of sand to a beach. It's a bit like being lost in a forest. You might feel overwhelmed, but each step forward brings you closer to finding your way out. Dark philosophy can make us feel lost, but it can also guide us towards new perspectives on how we live with nature. It's not about giving up hope, but about seeing things differently. What do you think? Does knowing how small we are help us care more for the earth, or less? You know how sometimes we see things in life that make us wonder? Like when we encounter people who seem to do terrible things without any remorse. It's hard to understand why they'd act that way, isn't it? Philosophers have been trying to figure this out for centuries. Some think evil might be a kind of twisted mirror image of good, like how darkness appears only because light exists. Others believe it could be a result of our own fears and insecurities manifesting outwardly. It's almost as if evil is a shadow we all carry within us, waiting to be brought to life by our choices. But here's the thing: even when we see evil at its worst, it doesn't have to define us. We can choose to let it pass us by, like water flowing over smooth stones. Remember, just because something exists doesn't mean we have to engage with it. We always have the power to turn away from darkness and walk towards the light. You know how sometimes we feel small in this vast world? That's kind of what happens when we think about the influence of dark philosophy on architecture and urban planning. It's like looking at a cityscape through a lens of mystery and intrigue. Imagine walking down a street where buildings seem to loom over you, casting long shadows that stretch and twist. That's what some architects try to create when they draw inspiration from darker philosophies. They might design spaces that feel a bit eerie or unsettling, like a haunted house, but in a good way. It's all about playing with our emotions and making us feel something deeper than just comfort or functionality. They might use materials that look old and weathered, or shapes that remind us of nature but aren't quite right. But here's the thing: even though it sounds a bit spooky, this kind of design isn't meant to scare us. It's more like inviting us to slow down and appreciate the beauty in the unknown. Think of it as a reminder that there's always more to life than what we can see on the surface. And who knows, maybe one day you'll find yourself in a building that makes you feel that way. Would you want to explore such a place? You know how sometimes life feels like it's slipping through our fingers? That's kind of what entropy means in dark philosophy. It's the idea that everything in the universe is slowly unraveling, falling apart, and losing order. Imagine taking a beautiful bouquet of flowers and watching them wilt and scatter in the wind. That's entropy happening right before your eyes. But here's the thing: we often try to fight against entropy, to hold on to things and keep them perfect. We tidy up our rooms, we plan out our days, we try to make sense of the world. But deep down, we know it's all just a temporary illusion. The truth is, nothing lasts forever, and that's both sad and liberating. That I think about this when I'm sitting by a river. Watch how the water flows, constantly changing, yet always moving forward. It's like life itself. We may lose our shape, but we never truly stop. And maybe that's the beauty of it all, embracing the messy, imperfect nature of existence instead of trying to control it. What do you think? Does that resonate with you? You know how sometimes life feels like a maze? Well, emotions can be like little breadcrumbs leading us through that maze. They guide our decisions, even when we don't realize it. Imagine you're walking through a forest, and suddenly you catch a whiff of wildflowers. It might make you want to take a detour from your path, right? That's kind of what emotions do. They subtly nudge us towards certain choices. But here's the thing: emotions aren't always reliable guides. Sometimes they lead us astray, like following a misleading trail of breadcrumbs. In dark philosophy, there's this idea that our emotions can cloud our judgment, making us act against our own best interests. It's like trying to navigate through fog. We might think we know where we're going, but really, we're just stumbling along. So, how can we trust our emotions when making decisions? Well, maybe instead of relying solely on them, we could use them as one tool among many, like having a compass, a map, and a compass rose all working together. That way, we've got multiple ways of finding our direction, even if one of them gets us lost sometimes. What do you think about that approach? Does it sound like something you'd try in your own decision-making process? You know how sometimes we wake up from a dream feeling unsettled? It's like our mind was trying to process something deep while we slept. Philosophers have been exploring what this might mean for centuries. Some think nightmares could be our subconscious way of dealing with fears or unresolved issues. It's like our brain is trying to work through problems even when we're not consciously thinking about them. Others see dreams as a window into our psyche, revealing hidden desires or anxieties. It's like looking into a still pond. What we see might surprise us, but it could also offer insights we hadn't considered before. For example, have you ever had a dream where you were flying? Some people interpret this as a desire for freedom or escape. It's not necessarily literal, but it could speak to feelings we're not fully acknowledging in our waking lives. Ultimately, dreams and nightmares remain mysterious, but exploring them can lead us deeper into ourselves. It's like following a winding path. We might not always know where it leads, but the journey itself can be enlightening. What do you think about this? Have you ever had a dream that left you feeling particularly unsettled or curious? You know how sometimes we wonder about the big questions in life? Like, what's the meaning of it all? Well, this idea of dark philosophy has been floating around for ages, and it's had quite an impact on how we think about learning. It's kind of like when you're walking through a forest at night, everything feels mysterious and a bit eerie, but also strangely beautiful. Some philosophers have looked at the world in a pretty gloomy way. They've thought that life is short and bad things happen easily. This has influenced how some people teach. They might focus on preparing students for the worst-case scenarios. It's like teaching kids how to swim by throwing them into deep water right away. But here's the thing: this dark view isn't always helpful. It can make people anxious or pessimistic. Imagine if every time you went for a walk, someone told you to watch out for dangers around every corner. You might never enjoy the journey because you're too busy worrying about what could go wrong. Instead, maybe we should focus on finding balance. We could teach students about both the potential risks and rewards in life. It's like showing them the path through the forest. You point out where there might be thorns, but also where there are wildflowers blooming. That way, they can make their own decisions about how to navigate life's challenges. What do you think? Does this sound like a good approach to teaching? Or should we focus more on preparing for the worst-case scenarios? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. You know how sometimes we think about what doesn't exist, like empty space or silence? In quantum mechanics, scientists have found that even in those seemingly empty moments, there's still something going on. It's called the vacuum state. Imagine you're standing in a room, and suddenly all the furniture disappears. At first glance, it looks completely empty, but if you listen closely, you might hear a faint humming noise. That's kind of like what happens in the vacuum state. Even when everything seems absent, there's still energy present. It's a bit mind-bending, isn't it? This idea challenges our everyday understanding of emptiness and presence. It makes us wonder, what does it truly mean for something to be nothing? Does anything ever truly disappear in this universe? These questions lead us down a fascinating path of exploration in physics and philosophy. You know how sometimes we feel like time is flying by, but other times it drags on forever? That's because our perception of time isn't always straightforward. Some philosophers think of time more like a river, constantly moving, yet always present. We're all floating along together, carrying our moments past and future with us. It's interesting to consider that every instant is both now and gone at the same time. Like when you watch a sunset, each second brings you closer to nightfall, but you're also experiencing that perfect golden light right there in the present. Time isn't just passing, it's what makes life rich and full. What do you think about this idea of time being both fleeting and eternal? Does it resonate with your own experiences? You know how sometimes you get this nagging feeling that there's more to a puzzle than what's visible on the surface? That's intuition whispering its secrets. It's like having a sixth sense that guides us through life's complexities. In creative problem solving, especially when we're dealing with darker themes, intuition becomes our trusted companion. It's the spark that ignites innovative ideas and helps us navigate the shadows. Think of it as a gentle breeze on a stormy night. It might be hard to see, but it's always there, nudging us towards hidden solutions. Let me ask you, have you ever found yourself drawn to a particular color palette, while designing a piece inspired by existentialism? That's intuition at work. It's guiding your brushstrokes towards a mood that resonates deep within you. Or perhaps you've stumbled upon an unusual combination of sounds while composing music for a melancholic poem. Again, that's your intuition speaking, suggesting harmonies that transcend logic. Intuition isn't just a hunch. It's a bridge between our conscious mind and the subconscious realm of creativity. It allows us to tap into the collective unconscious, as Carl Jung would say. By embracing our intuitive nature, we open ourselves to possibilities that might have otherwise remained hidden. So next time you find yourself lost in thought, wondering how to tackle a particularly knotty problem, remember, your intuition is likely already working behind the scenes, waiting for you to trust its guidance. You know how sometimes we scroll through our feeds and come across posts that make us pause? Those moments when we realize we've been staring at a screen full of strangers' thoughts and feelings instead of engaging with the world around us? That's what I mean when I talk about the impact of dark philosophy on social media. It's like watching a stormy sky from behind a window pane, beautiful, but also a little unsettling. Dark philosophy brings up questions about life, death, and the meaning of it all. It makes us wonder if there's more to reality than what we can see and touch. Some people find comfort in exploring these big ideas online, while others might feel overwhelmed or even anxious. For instance, have you ever stumbled upon a post about nihilism? It's like reading a book that challenges everything you thought was true about the universe. Some folks might find it liberating, while others might feel lost. The thing is, social media isn't always the best place to grapple with these heavy topics. It's easy to get caught up in echo chambers or misinformation. But here's the thing, even if dark philosophy makes us uncomfortable, it can also spark important conversations. It might push us to think more deeply about our own beliefs and values. So maybe instead of avoiding these ideas altogether, we could try engaging with them thoughtfully, both online and offline. After all, life is full of mysteries, and sometimes it's okay to wonder about them together with others. You know how sometimes we wonder what makes us tick? It's kind of like that with artificial intelligence too. Some folks think AI might one day have consciousness, but others say it'll always be different from human thought. It's a bit tricky to wrap our heads around, isn't it? Imagine trying to grasp water with your hands. The more you squeeze, the more it slips away. That's kind of what consciousness is like. We can't quite put our finger on it, even in ourselves. But here's the thing. Maybe we don't need to fully understand it to create AI that feels alive to us. Think of it like painting a sunset. We don't need to capture every detail to make it beautiful. And who knows, maybe someday we'll find a way to paint a digital sky that feels just as real to us as the one above our heads. The question is, would that be consciousness or just a clever imitation? Only time will tell, I suppose. You know how sometimes we think about life's big questions? Like, what does it all mean? Well, when philosophers started exploring darker ideas, it had an interesting effect on how we think about healthcare and medicine. It's kind of like looking at a beautiful sunset through a filter. It changes how we see things. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a vast ocean. The waves stretch out before you, each one carrying its own story. In healthcare, we used to think of patients as these perfect waves, whole, complete, and easy to understand. But dark philosophy came along and said, wait a minute, what about all the undertows beneath the surface? It made us realize that people aren't always as straightforward as they seem. This way of thinking has influenced how doctors approach their work. They're not just treating bodies anymore. They're trying to understand the whole person, their fears, hopes, and even their darker thoughts. It's like learning to navigate those undertows safely. This shift has led to more holistic care, considering mental health alongside physical health. But here's the thing. While this new perspective can be incredibly powerful, it also comes with challenges. Sometimes, exploring those deeper waters can be scary. There are times when doctors might feel overwhelmed by the complexity of a patient's story. It's like being asked to hold too many pebbles in your pocket eventually. They start to weigh you down. So, we're still figuring out how to balance this deeper understanding with the practical needs of healthcare. It's a bit like trying to find the perfect rhythm on a piano, beautiful when done right, but tricky to master. As we continue along this path, we're constantly asking ourselves, what does it mean to truly care for someone? And how much darkness can we comfortably explore before we lose our way? What do you think about this? Does it make sense to you? Or do you have different ideas about how philosophy should influence healthcare? You know how sometimes things seem perfectly predictable one minute, and then suddenly everything falls apart? That's kind of what chaos theory is all about in economics and finance. It suggests that even though we think we understand how markets work, there are always hidden factors at play that can throw everything off balance. Imagine trying to predict the weather using just yesterday's forecast. You might get it right most of the time, but then suddenly a storm appears out of nowhere. That's kind of what economists mean when they talk about chaos theory in finance. It's not that we can't make predictions at all, but rather that we need to be prepared for unexpected twists and turns. And you know what? Sometimes those unexpected events can actually lead to new opportunities. Just like how a sudden rainstorm might wash away pollutants in the soil, unexpected market shifts could clear the way for fresh ideas and growth. So next time you hear someone talking about chaos theory in economics, remember that it's not necessarily scary, it's just nature's way of keeping things interesting.